Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Committee on Higher Education. We are here today as Thursday, January 23, room 229, and we are here as an informational briefing to follow up on our budget for the University of Hawaii that we had with Ways and Means. And I just want to say Happy New Year. It is going to be a good new year. We have a new president, and hopefully we're going to have a new vision for the University of Hawaii, and I want to try to put to rest some of these lingering things that have plagued us over the last so many years, and hopefully we can move on into the new vision that the new president is going to provide for us and for the border region. So with that, it's looking very hopeful for this new year and years to come. So with that, I want to go ahead and start off. My members here for the Higher Education Committee has not changed from last year. We have on my left, Senator Fukunaga, on my right, Senator Favela. Senator Choi Hashimoto is in the housing meeting right next door. He will be coming in. And unfortunately, Senator Kidani is home ill today. So, but she did leave us with a folder with questions in it. So we will be sprinkling her questions in with some of ours as we get started. Okay, with that, I want to start off with athletics, and we can, whoever is going to come up and answer questions. We did have questions from last time, and if you remember what they were, we can go ahead, and if you want to update us. I think we talked about the budget for the university and the shortfall that might impact the program and so forth. So who's going to start? Introduce yourself when you.
Michael Bruno, Provost, IUH Manoa.
Morning, good afternoon, Chair and members. Lois Mannin, Athletics Director,
Okay,
Acting
welcome.
Athletics Director. Your question was about the shortfall? Is that what you're?
Yes, we want to follow up. We didn't quite get into the meat of it during the WAM meeting, and so I think you said you folks had a plan, so is that something that you can discuss with us?
So as far as the shortfall is concerned, do you want to come up and explain that? It predates me.
Tiffany Kuroka, Assistant AD for Business Operations. Regarding the reported shortfalls from the 2024 NCA financial report, there's a, last time I was explaining that that includes the foundation as well as 1.6 million in hazard pay. And can I share this? This is a spreadsheet that has the breakdown between for the last.
If you could click, my committee want to hand it to them and she could pass it.
So it shows for
No, she's going to give you stuff to pass out. Yeah. no.
yeah, sorry, there's like 6 packets in there. It's 3 pages each.
Yeah. So you can
So-
hand it to members.
For the 2024 year, the department only, the state funds, had a 279,000 net income. And then 1.57 hazard pay. And then the foundation had a 828,000 loss.
Okay, so we're looking at section 1.
So section 1 is the state funds
Okay.
for fiscal year 2024 and till 2018.
And so the loss is
So in 2024, it was 279 net income.
okay, but then on the bottom,
Yeah, so then with the 1.57 hazard pay and the 828,000 loss, comes out to the 2.1.
But Chair, if I might, we made a decision at Manoa that for those units that essentially have no G-funded positions and therefore will not benefit from any state support towards the hazard pay agreement, that the Manoa campus will make up for those deficits. And so the intent is for the Manoa campus reserves to help the athletics department and cover that deficit.
But we actually didn't have a deficit in the department.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
In that
trying to
year,
say.
yeah.
In that year, there
yeah.
was
But there,
no
if you
deficit.
look at, fiscal year 2022 to 2018, there were losses in those years. So
Yeah.
the Manoa did help to cover those losses.
Okay, go ahead and continue.
I'm sorry?
You want to continue?
Oh, no, so that's what this spreadsheet is to talk about, to show the differentiation between the state funds and the foundation.
When you say foundation, the foundation provides,
That's the UH Foundation.
right,
So
do they
like,
provide a consistent revenues, or is it?
it's like when the public donates money,
Right.
it has to go into the UH Foundation. A lot of times it goes into sport-specific accounts, like football or basketball, and then they spend it, for what they need that's not covered by the department.
So you add up all of those monies from the foundation?
Yeah.
Do you have a breakdown on what sports get? I mean, I would think football gets the bulk of
Yeah,
it,
yeah, but so some years, they spend more than they receive that year because they might have a build-up from prior years
They s-
donation.
They spend more.
They could spend more than what they bring in, or some years they might spend less than what they bring in, because like, say, during COVID years, they couldn't really spend much because they couldn't really do much under COVID restrictions. But like this past year, one of the main reasons that there was a deficit was a lot of the teams went on international trips, which they can do every 3 years. And so, they spent more in 2024 from funds that might have been accumulated in 22, 23.
But they only spent what they had, or they spend more than,
I mean, they won't spend more than they have in the foundation accounts, but they could have balances from prior years that's rolled over from year to year.
and the money's never lapsed? The
No,
money's always
it's-
rolled over?
Yeah,
And the foundation continues to, in addition, continues to put in those funds?
I mean, the funds come in from donations from the public.
Foundation. See, we don't get reports from the foundation, which I think there might be bills that's wanting to find out what exactly, how much monies that they're actually raising and how much money is actually going to the university.
Yeah, I could do a report for this report I do for the NCA, I have to break it down by each sport every year and to consolidate with the department for the NCA's report. So I have that information if you do want it.
Okay,
I can do
yeah,
that.
if you can provide that to us, that would be helpful. Because I just learned yesterday that monies from the, what is that? The film industry tax credits, the 0.1% for workforce development is paid not directly to the film school and so forth. It goes into the foundation, and then the foundation gives the money out, right? So that's something we're going to be talking about. So that is confusing, because I was under the impression the foundation is only monies that they raise on their own. And so to find that state funding and state taxes are being paid to the foundation and then to then parcel out.
I didn't know that.
See, you didn't know that either. Yeah, I just learned that yesterday from HTA and the film
Fortunately,
industry
we don't get
people.
any of that.
Yeah.
We don't have that.
Well, it just, who does the accounting to make sure that monies that are donated for the university and for particular sports are actually being,
I know for athletics, I sign off on every single deposit and distribution from the department. So I know definitely it's being used for athletics because I sign off on it.
No, what I'm saying is that how do you know Mr. XYZ didn't give more money for sports, and that the foundation, and I'm not saying that they purposely not giving you all the money, but for accounting errors and so forth, that we're not getting, or you're not getting all of the funds? I mean, is there an accounting system?
I can't speak for a foundation. If they were here, I'm sure they would say their number one rule is to abide by the
Right.
donor's wishes, so.
No, I understand, but
that's-
there's always got to be checks and balances.
Yes, I agree. Yep.
Okay, members, any questions on what was passed out to you as far as the deficits of the department. You know, we asked for your charter commercial travel, and we were given a document that I could barely read, or I
Sorry.
can barely translate. And, you know, I mean, I hope, and oftentimes the university does that. They'll give us a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense to us, and so then we have to go in and ask you. So, members, I think you have that. Did you read copies of that? Okay. But this is what was provided.
Yeah,
It's very hard to
that's-
read, and it says football commercial air, football charter air, total football air only, and there's all kinds of numbers on this, and so, Provost, if you can read this, I'll, you know, give you $5.
Sorry.
Or if you can
I do
translate
have,
this.
I do have it, and I actually put together that spreadsheet, so you have it.
Yeah, so in the future, with, you know, when we ask for stuff, if you guys can give it to us in layman's terms, that would be helpful. 'Cause,
So what I did was, it's kind of hard from year to year because every year, or depending on where we're traveling, it might be commercial the whole way, or it could be like, a lot of times they'll do commercial to like, say, LA or something, and then from LA to, say, Boise, we might have to do a small charter plane there, and then back to, small charter back to LA and LA back. This year, we decided that we are gonna charter the entire way, so we didn't have to make stops and use commercial at all, which helped us to save on travel time.
Yeah, well, that's what we just wanted to know. We
Yeah.
wanted to know, because I think it makes sense. I know some of these flights, and depending on the airlines, you got to make stops, and then there's delays, and, you know, you layovers and
Yeah.
so forth, and sometimes there's 3-4 hour layovers, and it's very taxing. And I can imagine on our athletes.
Yeah, and then they also have to like, maybe go a day earlier and then
Right,
come back a day later.
exactly.
So we saved on the hotel costs and
Right.
meal costs.
And
the
that's what we
ground.
wanted, a simple comparison of, you know, if we were to do commercial versus what we're doing charter, at the end of the day, do we save?
Yeah.
Do we save money? And
So-
maybe we won't, maybe we might break even, but, or it might be a little bit more, but what are the benefits and how do we benefit from it?
So I compared the 2023 schedule, and I used the 2024 costs of the charters, and then minusing out the days that we're saving and all that. And it, for the 5 trips, because this year we went on 5 trips, comparing it to the first 5 trips of 2023, we saved, I think it was 87,000 by doing the charters instead of going the commercials and the charters in between.
Okay, so is
So we
that
did-
a policy now that you folks will look at and compare charters before you decide?
That would be.
So we're gonna, every year we go to different cities. So it really depends on what cities we go to. It that determines how much the charters are. So we're evaluating now charter prices and getting quotes for charter flights. We would like to continue it, but we need to do the financial analysis first.
And it's only football that we're talking about, right?
It's only football.
The
Yeah,
other
because of the
teams are
lot.
too small.
Right,
Correct.
because it's a large number.
Yes.
And the hotel rooms are large. Now, when they do hotel rooms, do they bulk up, partner up, or is it single rooms, or how do you do
Oh,
it?
it's 2 per room, 2 student athletes per room.
2 per room. Okay, so that, yeah, it's still, how many do we take? 80?
It's about 120 total travel party
Total.
and about 74 student athletes.
Okay, so, yeah, even if they double up, that's still a
It's
number of
a large
rooms.
group.
Right, and depending on where you go, that's expensive,
Yes,
right?
very.
And then there's meals on top of that.
There's meals,
Right.
there's missed class time.
Right, and then there's transportation too, because you gotta bus
Bus.
them to the,
Correct.
but then you'll still have bus, but if you go from the airport, I mean, I don't know, they get a night's rest or what, depending on the timing, right?
Yeah, the biggest savings is on the hotel and the per diem and the meals. Yeah.
Okay, members, any questions on that? Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Thanks, Athletic Director, for being here. question on the sheet that you gave us. This is actually a really good breakdown of your revenue and expenses. So I guess for FY24, your potential loss is the 2.1, right? So then I think you're coming in for 25 for, is that how you guys projected out your request to WAM on how much that lump sum is going to be for your request in the budget this coming year for athletics?
So I couldn't really answer on how we projected out the request to WAM because I wasn't involved, but I think that the 2.1 is negative of the 1.5 in hazard pay, correct?
Right, the university's
So I
going to
think we're
make
looking
that
at
up.
$500,000.
So it's much less than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did we come up with the number that you
The
eventually
3.2,
proposed?
the 3.2?
That's in the Gov's budget.
That is a carryover from the year prior where we've asked for 3.2 million to subsidize our operating budget.
Okay, so I guess what we're trying to figure out is what is that attributed to? Because I think what I'm trying to drill down to is what is the cost driver that we're trying to figure out, right? What is the thing that we need to really understand that we know, because the expenses are going up.
Correct.
And we just need to know why. Why is it going up? Is it just general expenses are going up? Is it salaries? Is it, what is it that we're up against
So
to
salaries-
get us back into the black? Because at some point,
Correct.
we don't want to put you back to the negative on how you were, and then somebody has to come in and wipe you out. So
So
I
there's
think
a-
we have to be crystal clear on what your cost drivers are and how do we stop that from happening into the future.
So I think a lot of it is related to our uncontrollable costs, and our unique costs. So travel is one of them, right? Travel costs are going up by about 15%. So that's one of them, and we can't really anticipate, but we can add 15% to the ask. So that's one of them. The other one is scholarship costs are going up as well. And we can also talk about,
But does this include scholarship costs? Isn't that scholarship comes from the system or the,
not all of it. We are subsidized by the university with special talent waivers and tuition, in-state tuition waivers, and then some cash as well.
It's about 2 million a year, but that doesn't,
It does not
that does
cover,
not nearly
so what,
cover.
I'm sorry, what portion of your budget, of your, that the ledge provides actually go to scholarships? And you might want to give us a breakdown of where those monies go. Because once they go into the base budget, which is why we hesitate to putting in the base budget, because you come in asking for it, until we know what are these expenditures. Because once it goes in, then it's lost, as far as we know, as to what these funds are.
We have never used legislative funds for scholarships.
Yeah, I
It's
was-
only used for
I was going to say that
travel guarantees.
it was dedicated to,
travel guarantees.
Well,
yeah,
but then-
and women's sports.
But what was
subsidies.
just reported was that some of these monies, he's asking you, how do you guys come up with the ask? And you're
Yeah.
talking about scholarships.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm
I
asking.
I apologize. I was trying to explain the costs,
that are going
the
up.
increases. that
Yeah,
are-
no, I guess if you don't have it now, that's fine, but I think we need a better understanding of what are the cost drivers. And I guess, we'll reiterate the ask in WAM, what is the plan to get us into the black? I think there's a lot of things that we say, okay, we're gonna raise more money, that's one thing, but is that really gonna get us into the black? I think as I asked in the WAM briefing as well, what was the other ask, right? What is of the positions? Because I have not heard from you why those positions converting to G funds are important. So I'm assuming it's not a part of this plan that you're looking for to get you back into the black. But it was in the governor's request, but it wasn't given to the governor. So I just assume it wasn't articulated to the governor how important it is, and which is fine. If that's not a part of the plan, we just need to know that though.
Yeah, I think the ask for the positions, I think it was 46 positions, was purely an athletics ask, and it's to be budget relieving, to move it from the special fund to the general fund.
Right,
So
but,
that,
and I get that, that's why I'm asking, what is it, what are the cost drivers that we need to figure out that, to get that, is that a part of the plan? Is that mission critical to get UG funded if we're gonna see athletics to operate in the black? And if it's not, if we don't give that to you, then you should tell us, okay, then you're gonna expect us to operate in the red. But you need to clearly articulate that to myself and the rest of the members, what is it that we are trying to do to help athletics? And that's what my concern is. We just need to know what those cost drivers are and what the plan is to get you figure that all out.
Understood, Senator, and we can definitely do that in the plan that you asked for in the last meeting.
Great.
Shouldn't that plan also be with the Board of Regents? Shouldn't the Board of Regents be asking and wanting to find out before you folks approve this budget that they're asking for as to how did they arrive at that? Or you guys don't care? Just, I mean, okay.
Senators, for the Gably region, for this particular 3.2, we did ask about that, and it was, as we understand, it's for existing positions as well as,
Yeah, we understand
mental,
what they're
yeah.
asking it for, but we're going on the same line
Yeah.
as Senator Hashimoto is what are the drivers and what is the plan and what is it? So, going forward and not just, okay, we want X positions for this, but are they still going to be in the black? Are they going to go in the red? I would think that's something that the regions, as they look at the budget, would question.
yeah, I think,
We can definitely consult
Yeah.
with the
Yeah,
regions.
so when you come up with that plan, I think that's something that needs to be, it's so it's like you folks come to us, you guys go to the governor, you go to the regions, you have them just, okay, this budget, but all the details come out here when some of that details should be coming out in the Board of Regents. Then it would save us a lot of asking, right? I'm sure you guys don't want to come to us all the time and have to be asked. So I'm just helping you folks along the line as how, in going forward, that we can make this process a little bit more friendly and easier to deal with.
understood.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, he's got to go vote. They two got to go vote. Okay. Can you update us on what's happening with the practice field, with the track? Because we've had concerns raised about that and the women, especially impacting the women's programs. So can you?
Sure, I can't give you a up-to-date, today status of where the track project is, but I can tell you that our track sport administrator does meet weekly with the project delivery team and the contractor to get updates on where the project is and any challenges that they may be facing. The track coaches and the soccer coaches are also invited to sit in on those meetings. If they're unable to attend, then the sport administrator does update them. There have been delays beyond our control. I know there's been a lot of rain that have caused delays, that has also caused frustration with the track team and understood frustration and shared frustration. But I'm not sure, I couldn't really answer to where the project is or anything like that, but I can.
What's the budget and where did that funding come from for these projects?
Good morning, or good afternoon, Senator Jan Govea, Vice President for Administration. Are you asking about the funding for the track and soccer project? That funding came from tuition and fees.
And how much was that? Or is that?
Roughly 15 million.
Okay, so are you able to give us a complete picture as to what has been the cost for Ching Field, in addition to the arena itself, the add-ons, and then the cost to have to move the field, the cost to have to re-level everything else, and all of that, because it's been so piecemeal, and where did this
Yes.
funding come from?
Yeah. Yes, we can pull all that together comprehensively for both the Ching complex upgrades plus the track and soccer field project.
So I understand RIM monies were used for Ching initially,
Initially, yes.
and what was that amount?
Oh,
You can think about it, because it'll come, you can tell me that when we get
Okay,
to
okay.
CIP, which
Okay.
is third on this
Okay.
list.
I'll
But
have that. I'll try to have that by then.
That's enough.
Yeah, okay.
So in the meantime, where are these teams practicing, or where are they?
So we've gone out to the high schools to try and arrange practice. Soccer was able to arrange something with Mid-Pac, so they've been practicing at Mid-Pac. And track and field has been to different places. A year ago, they were at St. Louis, and St. Louis has a lot of usage up there at that field. And we're trying to work out times, ideal times, because it has to be conducive with our track team's practice class schedule. So we're trying to work that out. They were also at Iolani last year, and they are still at Iolani on most weekdays. And then also,
Do you have to pay for that?
no, we're not
No
paying for that.
fees. The schools are letting them use it.
Correct. And at Kalani High School as well, who just built a new track, they have been willing to help us on certain Saturdays as well.
So let me ask this to the regents. When you guys decided to go ahead with Ching Complex, and when you decided to not go to, and I know you as chair did advocate that we get a waiver from NCAA for the addition, and they have since let up on that requirement that we have to have 15,000 seats, right? No longer required, which we should have gone and probably would have gotten the waiver. But when you guys did that, did you folks consider the impact to all the other sports? And did you guys decide that impact to the other sports that it would have? And where would they practice and how it would impact them when that decisions were made?
Yeah, I wasn't part of the conversation, but I'm sure,
But shouldn't you
sure
have
that
been?
it happened.
Isn't that Manoa? Doesn't that fall under?
Not under me, no, not the athletics
Not the
department,
athletics?
no. But I'm sure this was part of the discussion. I remember hearing about the practice field, the absence of a practice field because of the renovations of Ching, because that field had always been the practice field for football. Yeah, it was not an ideal situation, and I don't think anybody anticipated what what happened back 2019.
December of 2020,
Yeah,
we were
I
notified.
mean, we didn't know that they were gonna shut down.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so yes, given that,
Yeah.
we didn't know all that, but once Ching Field was built and they had the 10,000 seats, we knew already, right? We knew what we had, we knew what was the cost going to be, not just in funding, but what the cost would be to impact sports when we add on the 5,000 more seats, or whatever amount that was, 6,000 more seats. And again, it seems like, and I'm hoping as we go forward, that you're not looking at the big picture and that you have this tunnel vision and say, well, we need to do this because NCAA. And I remember watching the Board of Regents meeting, and I remember Gabe Lee asking that question about, did you folks, did the athletics department, did the AD go in and ask NCAA for a waiver? And they said, no, they didn't officially ask for one. And so we said, you could use Murakami Stadium for seats, you could use Stan Sheriff for seats, because other schools have done that for temporary. So did we do that instead of spending the money? And they did. They did not go in for the waiver, which, again, we didn't look at all of the opportunities that were there to save money and not impact the other sports, but it was not something that the administration pushed for.
I think that's
Right.
right, yeah.
So how do we keep ourselves, or the university, from making those kinds of decisions that impacts everybody and the cost for a temporary ad, which I'm not sure you've had of the games that was held there, how many actually sold out games there were? Okay, you don't have to answer that question. I think we know that. I do have the question, though. Isn't that one of the main responsibilities for athletic director is to bring in funding? So is there a record of how much funds each previous athletic director brought in specifically?
I'm sure there is.
So
I'm sure
you
there is.
can
That's-
you don't have, do you have that?
I do not.
Okay, perhaps you can provide that to us, because my understanding is that is the most important, one of the most important roles of the AD is to be able to bring in new monies for sports, because obviously we just don't continue to have that kind of funding from the state. And now with NIL, even more so, it is imperative that you get an AD that have that kind of reach, that have that ability, that have the contacts to do that. So as we're analyzing them, I think that would be one of the things that the Board of Regents need to really look at. And it's very troubling that in the most crucial time we have now during the budget, we don't have an AD with a long-term vision, just as we didn't have a president with a long-term vision because he was retiring out. And so we have this budget, which is very difficult for us because there's no vision in this budget. And similarly, we're talking about sports and athletics being at such a pivotal time in the whole country as to what's going on. And we don't have a leader that's a long-term leader that we can talk to and find out where we're going, right?
I agree, Chair. I'm sure that once the search gets underway, that there'll be an assessment of what has happened, let's say, over the last 5 years in terms of fundraising and what are the goals. I mean, that would have to be stated to any of the candidates. This is our
My
expectation.
concern is on the time of the search, because this was brought up for the president. We were concerned here about the budget being prepped by the outgoing president, that the president coming in wouldn't be able to answer questions on the budget because it wasn't that person's budget. And, the regents tried to assure us that we were going to try to have a president by the fall, and then by November, and then we end up not getting a president until January 1. And then on the heels of that, we had an athletic director that was just newly hired, about going on 2 years, and then that one gets fired by the person that hired him just before the budget. So, and here we are. I mean, that's very troubling. And it doesn't necessarily bode well for athletics and our support of athletics. So I just want the public to know that, that these are issues that we are facing, and we look to you folks, because you folks are the ones that is going to have to implement the programs.
I share your concerns, and I'm up here ultimately because these are our students. They are students first. They're student athletes, so
Exactly.
anything that impacts them impacts
So
our
if we can
campus.
have a record of, and I know the last AD wasn't here long, but how much money did he bring in? The athletic director before that, how much money did he bring in over his time? And I'm not talking about, continued monies, I'm talking about new monies.
Yeah.
Yes, new donations and so forth. Okay, thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
Chair.
Senator Favela.
I just get a couple of questions as we're talking about athletics. I just wanted to know who made I'm not sure if this question was asked because I was in another hearing, but since I have it on my paper, I want to ask the question. So anyway, who made the decision to extend the football coach's contract?
I did.
Okay. Was it your decision or you were directed to do it?
It was my decision.
Okay.
Can I?
Why? Why was that decision made?
I felt like it was in the best interest of the football program and the university to extend him by 1 year.
So when you guys, I mean, this is the reason of transparency and continuing to hit little bit roadblocks on there. I have nothing against the coaches or whatever, just the process of things that we're doing at the university that, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of problems with President Lasner because he used to do a lot of things himself. He would talk to himself, he'd counsel himself. He was the chancellor and the president, so he would talk to himself a lot. I'm just kind of disturbed that we keep making decisions with outside of anybody else winning, and then it stops to you that I made the decision because you thought it was this, and so forth. And again, it caused problems for the community, us guys. We don't like the ones that doing these kind of info briefings and not trying to put you guys on a hot seat, but we get numerous complaints on who making the decisions at the university, who has the wheel, who's driving it. And every time we talk to somebody else driving a wheel, and then you say it was you, okay, fine. But like I said, how are we gonna get transparency and stuff like that if there's not a conversation or things are going forward? And another one too, just off of that subject, as you already answered a question, what is the long-term plan for Ching's Field?
So to go back to your first question, I want to apologize. I did make the decision, but I did consult with President, and I believe President consulted with the board.
Which
But,
president?
President Lasner.
Good, but that's what I'm saying. He already was out the door. You never think to wait to collaborate with the new president? to collaborate if you make a decision like this? Or the contract was gonna end that soon, so you had to make a decision? Was that the reason?
I believe that it was better to renew him for at least 1 year so that
Or was
he,
his contract gonna end?
it was going to end this year.
Okay, what I'm saying is, you guys knew you guys was gonna have a new president. Why not collaborate with the new president? So the guy saying aloha, taking all our taxpayers' money and gone. That's the kind of concern that our people have, because again, we're not hiring people, local people here, and I ain't got nothing against people, foreigners coming there getting jobs, but they're making decisions for a lot of people. Then you collaborate with somebody who already was out the door.
Yeah.
Made a decision to hire the interim director, then after that, he hired him because he had to do this decision, because he couldn't fire him because he wasn't hired. So he wait till he get hired, then he fire him. What transparency is that? How you collaborate like that? How can you get transparency, never giving the new president one option to collaborate with you guys, to gain you guys' trust and working with you guys, she trusting you guys, but she didn't have that chance?
I will say that collaboration is something that we always try to do, but the timing of the football coach was very,
Okay,
it was very difficult because the transfer portal opened.
can I
Go ahead.
interrupt? I'm sorry. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so you took over as interim or acting AD when?
I believe it was November. Officially, I think it was December 2nd. I think it was December 2nd.
So December 2nd, but you knew about it before it was announced that he was going to be fired.
I wasn't sure of it. I knew about it right after it happened.
And so you were appointed when, or you took over when exactly?
December 2nd.
Officially,
was-
December
well,
2nd.
I can't even remember, to be honest.
Okay, and when did
It's
you
been
make
a
the
while.
decision to extend the contract?
I'm not exactly sure of the date on what it was. I think it was December 2nd.
Okay, but when did you decide that to,
I was
extend the
thinking
contract.
about it from when they announced that Athletic Director Angeles was not going to be retained anymore. I'm not sure about the date, but I do know that officially it was December 2nd, but I was making decisions prior to that. I was given the authority to make decisions prior to that.
how much prior to that?
I want to say sometime in late November.
And the president told you that?
I believe it was HR and the president. I'm not completely sure. I can't really remember of the
Well,
real
that's
date.
interesting because
Because he was not,
I wonder how it would be if the governor or we told the incoming president, you know what, you're not taking over yet, but we're going to just start making all the decisions, in December, a couple weeks in December before you start. Because literally that's what happened there, right? You were told before the person was even let go that you were making the decisions, right?
I was told I had authority to make decisions,
Same thing,
you
right?
know, but I did consult with the president before. I didn't just make the decision and say, I'm going to renew it. I consulted with the president.
Jason.
Yeah.
So when I asked you earlier, was the decision that you made, was you? You said, yeah. You didn't say you had collaborate with the outgoing president.
I understand that, and I
So-
apologize.
So if you did it by yourself, like I asked you earlier, or you did it in collaboration with working with the outgoing president, then that is different.
Agreed, and I'm sorry I wasn't more clear. I did collaborate with the president. I did tell him that I wanted to consider renewing the contract.
So can you explain again why, you said in the best interest of the university, was specifically,
Right, so the transfer portal opens right after the football season ends. And as you could see, we did have a lot of people entering the transfer portal. So we were trying to minimize that effect on the football program, which would be not devastating, but it would have a negative impact on our football program, not knowing the fate of the football coach.
okay, but you extended the contract before the portal opened, correct?
Correct.
How-
To avoid,
How much, how soon before
I-
the portal?
I
A couple
don't
weeks,
remember.
right? A couple weeks, from what I understand.
I'm not really sure.
Okay, I think it was a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it opens
Because I
before
was
the
told
March
that's the reason why. And then a whole bunch of people went into the portal, even though you did that. Because I questioned that. I said, you think just because you raised, and I'm not saying whether or not
Right.
the contract should have been extended or not, but the reasons you're giving is that to avoid people from going into the portal, but it didn't do that. Ultimately, it didn't do that.
We wouldn't really know, to be honest, because we don't know how many more people would have entered the portal. People are going to enter the portal anyway. I can give you statistics on the portal.
Right, but I'm just saying, because you have no control, so whether you did it or not, you still had some key people leave or go to the portal.
Correct, which is
Right.
true at any university.
Right, so just the fact that you extended the contract doesn't necessarily.
I did only extend it by 1 year. We could have done it for more years, but I didn't think it would be prudent because it would be the next athletic director's decision to be able to make a decision.
Okay, sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so you're listening to yourself, what you just said, giving the new athletic director to make the decision if they're gonna choose them. But you didn't think to make the new president collaborate with you to extend the contract. See, by using that, I don't use the word excuse, but that's what it sounds like, that they were gonna have more people entering the portal. We already knew prior to the ending of the season, we was losing a lot of members because of what happened during the season and the coaching style. I'm not gonna blame any individual coach. That's why a lot of our players was entering the portal. But to go ahead and collaborate with Brother Lesnar because that was his guy, to extend the contract. And I may be making it up, but that's could have been the conversation. We don't know because nobody else had a chance to ban him. How we don't know you guys was kind of, hey, that's my boy, give him another shot, give him 1 more year.
I can
I'm
tell you.
not saying that would happen, but you can see what the community is thinking. Yeah, because I think like the community. I don't think like university, because I'm a community. So that's how I'm thinking. I wouldn't be saying it if it wasn't being thinking that way. We're giving too much credit to one guy that was just went to me when I've been in this square building for 4 years. Lesnar suck. Sorry to say that, but that's the truth. Okay, he argumentative. He get all mad at meetings and he played a victim. And then everybody ridiculed Senator Kim. He wasn't a leader. That's all I'm asking. You guys telling you guys like I trust you guys and not to be upset. But I'm upset because you like give the new AD this preview to avoid the contract, but then you never give the new president the same preview. Because you're saying because get more people in the portal. But the same people that went into the portal, did they come out when you guys extended his contract? How much went in, and when you guys would extend the contract, how much came out of the
They
portal?
extended the contract before the portal opened,
Correct.
before
Okay.
the portal opened, so it didn't stop.
We didn't know that.
We have 19 football players entered the portal, and this is as of January 9th. 19 were football players, 4 of them signed, 3 of them with FBS schools, but the others, we don't know.
Thank you, Jerry.
Senator
Quick
Hashimoto.
question. I guess, so what, I'm just trying to get this all straight, and, I think we're just looking backwards at this point, and so maybe it's more, so this never happens again in the future. So the previous athletic director, though, he wasn't working on the football contract. Is that what you're telling us? And that's why you had to, it sounds like you had to take the leadership to make it happen? Or
I
what's
can't
the-
answer
so-
to that. I can't answer to that because I don't know what.
So you weren't
when
in
I-
those conversations of
not.
what was going on with the?
I was not, but when I did talk to the football coach, he didn't give me any indication that there was any conversation.
So you had to then figure it all out then
Yes.
in a matter of a short period? Was there any conversations of not renewing it, or like, was it?
There was no conversation at all.
Okay.
Was there, I had heard, I don't know how true it is, that the athletic director at the time said that if it wasn't a winning season, that he was not going to extend the contract. Is there any truth to that?
I would not know because I was not involved in any of those conversations.
Okay, well, it's interesting you weren't involved in any of those conversations and a lot of stuff, but yet you got in and in a matter of weeks, you made a decision.
Just because I wasn't involved in the conversation doesn't mean I was thinking about wondering what we're going to do. I was the number 2 there, but I was not involved in those conversations.
Is that normal, though, that the number 2 is not involved in any of the contract
It
decisions
really
of the
depends on
coaches?
the leadership style. It varies from school to school.
So what is the date of the extension? So when does that contract ends for the football coach?
Football coach, he has 2 more seasons, so it would be 25, 26. I
When?
believe it's December or January. December of 26, I believe. He
December
has
of
the 25
20.
season and the 26 season.
So December 20, around December 26 is when the contract would end.
December of 2026.
His contract would
Yeah.
end. So that whole decision would have to probably be made by next year, whether or not
Correct.
that gets. Okay, anything else on that? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on, West
Wait, wait,
Oahu.
don't forget to ask about the team field.
Oh, sorry.
You never asked.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
You did ask it, so.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then we'll get a chance as we get sidetracked. Sorry. So what is the plans for team field and going forward?
So the plans for Ching Field right now are waiting on the plans for the stadium. We cannot make any plans until we know that there is going to be a stadium built or not a stadium built. We are supporting the NASID project and hoping that that goes through, but that decision is not going to be made until summer.
The reason why I asked again, and I said this in the hearing, yeah, I don't know how much years, because I'm only new into the square building, but the University West Campus was gonna build it Mauka of Farrington Highway, and then decided to go Mackay or closer to Kroc Center, yeah, that area. And we have 250 acres, or maybe over 200 something acres of land that the university got back in the day. And when we was constructing the temporary field of Ching's Field, nobody ever thought that the university, with the collaboration and with the sports and wanna be in NCAA and all of these divisions, ever thought in their head to say, hey, we're not gonna wait to the state or Aloha Stadium because of all the things that was happening, right? Because at that time, you guys didn't know Aloha Stadium, when the years was constructing Ching's Field. You guys never think to divert you guys' efforts into building out West Oahu that we've been talking about in the stadium wise, with all the acreage that you guys have up there. I heard some of the acreage they're using the university is solar farms.
I cannot answer to that. I was not involved in the discussions about Ching Field when.
So who can answer the question about Ching Field then?
Probably have to be Jan. I mean, CIP. Okay, before you do that, let me just ask, okay, so when and if we have the stadium, what is going to happen to Ching Field? Do you folks know what you're going to plan?
So we would like to take away some of the bleachers and move it to the new track and soccer field so that we can repurpose that over there. And then expand the football field so that we can have more space to practice.
So it'll be turned into a practice field.
Correct.
Okay. Jan, I guess, you want to hear from Jan?
Yeah, because I got another question about all the beaches. I mean,
Okay, I mean, we do have time, but we
Okay,
have a lot of.
sorry.
No problem.
I'll be quick.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll be quick too, because I cannot speak for what the official plans are. I can just tell you that the official position of the university is that we are counting on and expecting Aloha Stadium to be rebuilt.
That wasn't his question.
Well, and so therefore, until it's built, we're gonna kind of cobble along and do our best to keep the current Ching complex in usable condition without investing too much. Because Ching complex was always a short-term solution. The long-term solution is still officially the Aloha Stadium. And so therefore, West Oahu as an alternative site really doesn't come into play, right? Because we're relying on Aloha Stadium to
I
be
think
built in
his
Halawa.
question was, did you folks even consider putting a temporary or permanent stadium in West Oahu, right? That's, I think, was his question.
Well, I can say that we've had, when we put everything on the table and think about it, yes, West Oahu was an alternative site, but if it's West Oahu versus Halawa, my understanding is it's always going to be Halawa. So we're kind of all in on just praying that Halawa gets built.
As long as I just heard from a previous speaker, the ED or whatever, that you guys are gonna remove some of the bleachers now from the field when you guys get Aloha Stadium up and running.
Oh, yes, once we no longer need
Yeah.
Ching Complex to serve as the competitive site for football on campus, then we can start repurposing some of
Where
the,
is those bleachers and all that other materials that you guys have is gonna go to?
well, I think we're exploring that. I don't know if that decision has been
So
made.
as you guys explore this, remember the amount of money of the taxpayers had paid from a temporary field to a permanent, and we wasn't even at the time NCAA compliant, that you guys wanted to spend some more funds. So the project would up to 4 million more to get it done. That's what I'm saying. If you guys, so the reason why I have a problem, and I'm gonna end this with this, and whether you can answer it or not. It was never the university's leadership's plan to actually really, because we get nobodies on West Oahu, ever was really planned. When they came to us, when I was on the neighborhood board, giving us all these great things that they was gonna bring to the west side, never happened. Shortchange us because everything is Manoa, everything is Manoa. Why we wasn't gonna have that equal playing field in a sense of thinking about expanding the horizon on that side? We're the fastest growing community. Manoa is not growing anymore. You know, they're all aging out. They're not growing as much as they used to. We're the fastest growing community with the lessest resources ever. No other community as large as ours would ever had the little resources that we have. I'm not blaming you, but I'm just saying, and I just leave it at that. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Favela. Okay, let's move on. West Oahu, follow up. Enrollment. You are going to get that figures to us, right?
Aloha Senators, Mainette Benham, Chancellor at UH West Oahu, and if I need any backup, I have my Vice Chancellor for Administration, David McDonald, with me as well. Okay, so you want to know about enrollment?
Well, we talked about that.
Yes.
And the question was, how many of the enrollment, because it's 2,814 students
Yes.
currently, possibly a few more that you said in the spring, whatever. But how many of that number, how many of them are part-time?
We're approximately 50-50. 50-50.
So half of the 2,814 is
Approximately
part-time.
50-50 part-time, and
That's a
the
high
other half.
number. I mean,
Yep, it is.
It's misleading to see this number and talk about this is our enrollment when there's so much part-time. What percentage, or are you
What-
counting the high school students as well?
In this number, yes, there's about 300, a little less than 300 in this number. So the number that we are giving you is head count, right? Then we can go into other numbers. We can break it down into student credit hours that we bring in. That's what we usually try to count. I don't have it in front of
Should
me.
be full-time students, part-time students, and then you have the high school. Because to lump it all together to give us this number is very misleading.
Well, we can disaggregate the data, but all the data that we give, that we put out in the public is a head count. And then we can give you full-time, part-time,
Okay.
and our early college as well. And then we can actually go deeper.
So when, I know what you put out to the public, but when you come before the legislature, we like to see those kinds of breakdowns.
Okay.
Because we're going to ask it ultimately.
All right, all
Whether
right.
you give it to us. If you give it to us, it'd be a lot easier.
Okay, no, that would be fine, and that's what you want from all of our
Of course,
campuses.
yes.
Okay.
So 50%, what is the percentage, Mr. Bruno, what is the percentage of part-time at Manoa? Do you know? You can look it up while she's at.
Yeah.
Or do you have that in your finger?
Yeah, so
I'm just
Senator-
curious to know what.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we're going to be different, you're going to find that we're different, is that we have different purposes. So the University of Hawaii West Oahu has been focused on providing our students who need a four-year education, right, who are coming from a region, And in that region, the majority of our students are working adults. And so they are 26, 27 years old, average age, and many of them, because they have family responsibilities, can really truly be part-time. And they may come on campus, or they may come hybrid or online. So the majority of our students are over the age of 26, 27. So you're going to find more of them part-time and finishing up their degrees and getting ahead. So that's the difference.
And I can understand that, but
Yeah.
I think in making decisions on bricks and mortar, which is the big thing, is that if we're giving you a full campus with buildings and bricks and mortar, and only half your population, which is 1,000 students basically full-time, if you take out the high school and you take out the part-timers on campus, I mean, compared to a high school.
Right, but I get the question. There are many part-time students who actually take on-campus classes, as well as full-time students who take on-campus and off-campus
Right,
classes.
but that would be
So-
interesting to fit the breakdown of
Yeah.
your part-timers who are actually taking on campus.
Yeah, so we have heat maps for that. I
So
think
if
many
you
of
can
the
provide that.
campuses have heat maps to show how, well, we can,
Well,
I'm
let me
sure we
let
can figure it
Mr.
out.
Bruno, what is that percentage? Do you know that approximately? Because your campus is a lot
Approximately-
bigger and,
Yeah, approximately, so we have a little over 20,000 students at Manoa. I'd say it looks like about 3,000 or so would be part-time.
so
So
that's
and the
about
rest would be
what,
full-time.
5%? No, what is that? Less percentage?
15%.
15%?
Yeah.
Okay, I was never good at math. Okay, 15%. And I assume you have a lot of elderly as well, because you have a huge population in the urban core.
We do, we
That's
do.
working, yeah, and so forth.
We do have a
15.
fairly significant fraction that are
50%.
between 30 and 60 years old.
Yeah, I'll probably ask all the colleges at some point what their percentage are.
Yeah.
Okay, questions? Senator, I have others, but
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. So one of the things that I came across in looking through West Oahu is you had made a statement in the ACM UH News, or New Age News, February 6, 2024, saying, we were quoted, "This project," and I assume it was mentioning the Academy of Cinematic Media, "will dramatically change life at UH West Oahu. With public square, retail, and dining options, our campus will increasingly become the hub of activity." And that's troubling, because every time we've gone to the campus, there's no activity. And I'm not sure when you say dining options and retail.
No, I wasn't talking about creative media. We were talking about the university village that would be built between the rail and our campus as part of the land planning around the campus with the heat around the campus. That's what the project, I believe, I was speaking directly to.
Okay,
And-
because the article, and I do have the article here, and is not referred to any of that. It referred to ACM and Chris Lee was quoted and so forth.
Well,
in that
I think
article.
that might have been part of the film production studio, right?
Right,
So,
right.
yeah,
And that is on the West Oahu campus.
yeah, so, yes, absolutely. The film production studio at the University of Hawaii West Oahu will be a game changer for the entire west side, because it will provide a variety of employment opportunities for many people on the west side, so that they don't have to travel into town, decreasing, a lot of that traffic, plus increasing the number of opportunities for our students for internships in a variety of advanced digital and film careers. And it's part of our the rail area development. We're on the Makai side.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, okay.
Senator Hashimura.
So I guess at the WAM briefing, you referred us to your enrollment management plan, which I think we were trying to find. We tried to look one day and we couldn't find it, but finally we got a new one. It seems like you're updating it really
Regularly.
on the fly. It says the last update was on the 13th.
Regularly, yes.
So has there been any more updates since then? Because we're trying to figure out what version is the latest
That enrollment
version.
management plan, was that updated just this January? Is this the January one? Right, so this is the plan that we're working on right now.
So you
And
still have more to amend in here?
no, we're working on it right now. And so after the end of this academic year, we will go back and assess what we've done for the academic year 24, 25, review what we've done and decide what we're going to do for the next year in those different areas, those different pools.
So it looks like your target increase is only 5%? 3%? 3%?
3%. Right.
And you think that's satisfactory?
Well, at the last meeting, Senator Kim reminded us that our system has actually put together a review of predictive analytics for the growth of our campuses over a period of time. And I believe you had the 2020 version. There is a newer version in 2022 because it's a regression that they do to take a look at a variety of different factors in order to project.
But I
So-
asked them that question, they said they didn't have any update.
Well, they're new they have a new director for IRAPO, and so she wasn't familiar with it, but there is a 22 version, and because of your reminder of that, they did begin to review it and revise it to today. In fact, just before I walked into this room, they sent me the revised predictive analytics for UH West Oahu going forward. And so that piece of information of data is extremely important to all of us because it helps us to understand the context of our region and how quickly we can grow. 3% is very low. My enrollment management people wanted me to go 10%, but it's within what we call sort of the scope of what those predictive analysis says that we should be growing. And we are working to actually grow bigger than that. And I just got the,
Well, shouldn't you be working to not lose any more? I mean, your enrollment has gone down and your part-time students have gone up and you're counting high school students.
well, if you
It's
do
very-
head counts, so we're going on head counts, on the head counts.
So
That's
this
generally.
is not your plan. This is the enrollment council's plan.
This is the campus plan. So
But
the-
if it's the campus's plan, shouldn't
Right.
you be leading and
Yes.
saying this is what I want the projection to be? So how come
Well,
it's 3% then?
it's based on data and through consensus, this is what we've come up with is 3%, a 3% for this coming year. Now, it will probably go up next year because we just found out today that we actually have headcount again, 63 more students than we were projected to have. So we've actually, went up more than our 3%. And so, which is a good thing, so we'll readjust that.
I guess
Yeah.
it's within the margins, but
Right.
I guess the whole reason why we bring this up is we have this beautiful campus.
Yeah,
We just need to figure out what is it that we're working towards to populate this school, right? I think I talked to told the UH president, I actually took a visit to ASU recently before the new year. And I learned that they have 100,000 students on campuses. They have 100,000 students online. And and those are the kind of innovative things that we as UH have to start thinking about. So when you talk about a 3% increase, I'm like, okay, 60 more students, I'm like, okay, but I think we have this beautiful campus that we have to figure out how to populate. And I don't know, you need to tell us, is the issue that you don't have the degrees that people want? We need to know that. I think we brought that up in the WAM hearing. Then you got to tell us that.
We do
because
have-
I know you don't have secondary education, but that's a huge need, right?
we do have secondary education, and we do offer it on the different islands.
But all
Yeah.
the things that you need, it's not a full secondary education
It
campus.
is a full, I think what.
You don't offer E. PE.
I agree. Well, first of all, I agree with you totally that there is much more that we can do online. But we are pretty much in a position right now where we're at a tipping point. We only have 85 faculty members. That's it.
Yeah, because you know, your enrollment have gone down and,
No, our enrollment actually in 2017 went over 3,000. We were over 3,000 until 2022 with COVID, and then our numbers started to go down. We are recovering right now in terms of headcount, and as of this spring, even after graduating over 230 students in the fall, we're up to 2,853.
And again, I
So
think-
we're going up, yeah.
I think what I'd like to see from UH West Oahu is, you know, I think
Yeah.
Senator Dela Cruz said it best. We're really looking for hub and spoke models, and I think UH West Oahu potentially could be the hub. Yet we're going to Manoa to be the hub for nursing, which I think maybe West Oahu should be the hub for nursing. But I think part of it is the vision. What is the vision of what do you need to make yourself the place where where people want to go? I think the location is good. I think people would rather go
Right.
that way than go to Manoa in some
Right,
respects.
right.
But I think the data is not showing us that's where the interest is, and I think we should all be worried. And so when you're talking about, oh, we got 60 more students, it's like, I think we got to be thinking bigger, right?
We're climbing higher, and, you know, with your help and getting more faculty to build our program so that we can take in more students. Also, you know, we're a commuter campus. That's, you know, people drive into our campus. We don't have any close residence halls or, you know, we are fast growing, but we are still a commuter campus.
I'm going to ask
Yeah.
in the future that you separate out the high school students from your
Sure.
numbers. Because that's not a true number. And that you show us part-time and what they're actually taking. What percentage of the students and your number head count is for your business, the business degrees and business students?
Let's see, they are our highest enrolled
That's what I've been
program. They are our highest enrolled program. I do have a count of where everyone is at. I just have to find it. It goes business, then applied sciences.
Right, but your
Then-
business is huge
Yes,
number.
yes, it is the largest undergraduate accounting program in the system in accounting. Do you have the numbers? We have it. Yeah, we do have the numbers, the actual enrollment. And then I had this all like nicely clipped together. And let's see, okay. So, where are we? No, so what we're looking at here is business. So sorry, your phone is.
That's your largest, you would think you would know that. It's like,
702 students.
so 702 students, which is 1/4,
Okay,
about 1/4 of your body count, including, and if we take out high school students and some others, I mean, that's a huge portion, and I think that's good, but maybe that's your focus, because if we're spending resources on everything else, when that's your, at this point, you seem to be attracting more business, and I'm not sure what kind of resources are being given, but I understand that there's some concern about that, of the undergraduate business degrees.
no, they are growing very quickly. They are well-resourced. They certainly would ask for more positions, but right now, what we're focused on in terms of our positions is our pre-nursing program and the facilities for our creative media program.
Yeah, but see, asking for facilities for creative media, and creative media, from my understanding, is almost online. A very small portion is in person. And
There's
so-
about 45% of the students now in the building. We did do
I have some graphs that will not
Okay.
show that. And that will come up on Tuesday when we talk about ACM. And it's troubling to have found that out. But here you have this huge amount of students in undergraduate in business, and you're focusing on a portion of students at this point that are offline. I'm just saying, you're not going to focus on them, but this seems to be a bread and butter at some point, and this is where the attraction on this part of the island is coming. So you would think you'd put your resources there as well.
Yes, we do have resources in our signature programs, which would be accounting and risk management in business, and cybersecurity as well. Those are very large in the business area. And then our counseling program and psychology program, those are signature programs as well, right?
I'm going to refer to Senator Kinati because she couldn't be here. I was asked some of her questions. So she said that because you talked about the enrollment plan online, she went online on Friday, the 17th, after the WAM briefing, and she said there was no enrollment plan online. Okay, so then the next day, Saturday, she went on, and then it was available online. But then on Wednesday, January 22nd, a new version came on, last dated 1/13/2025. So she's asking, was the Enrollment Management Council listed on page 8 part of the 1/13/25 revision? Can I have one of them come up and answer that question? Because it wasn't online on the 18th, and yet it's listed last dated 1/13, when that's not true.
I would have to check with our communications folks to find out when exactly it had been posted, updated and posted.
So she says, can you explain the primary difference in the 1/18 version and the 1/22 version? Last updated on 1/13?
I can find out.
Okay, you can get back to us on that. On page 10, what were the targets for 2024, 23-24 and 24-25 years as you have listed for 25-26 years? Incidentally, there are no targets for any of the 23-24 and 24-25 school years throughout the plan. Why is that?
I would have to check with the enrollment management team.
Okay, so, yeah, if you can get those responses to us. So maybe I can ask this of the regents. What is the university's vision of the role and the direction that West Oahu, in line of overall university plan, would West Oahu take on, given that that's the largest growing segment? Is that something that the regents have talked about as to, where the focus is going to be? And, it's pretty much like Hilo, where we have the pharmacy school with the enrollment is really down. Are we looking at futuristic types of degrees that we're wanting to educate our students so they can prepare for the future? Are we continuing to just have standard types of degrees without being nimble so we can keep up with the changes that's happening globally to prepare our students? Like IT, we want to go into IT. Is that maybe a place that West Oahu or Hilo, is there a vision of such things?
Well, we've had discussions with the administration, and similar to what Senator Hashimoto has said about are they the right majors, but also the ACM. I think we spoke about the hub and spoke. The ACM is the hub for the ACM program for the state.
Okay, we're going to have an interesting discussion on that on
that's
Tuesday,
how
which you can
organizational.
come on
But-
that. But as far as like campus-wise, we have these wonderful buildings there, a wonderful campus there, but you know, are we going to make it more of the business because that seems to be attraction, or is it going to be more of IT, which is the future, and looking at it, I mean, or,
No, we haven't gone into that. We've asked administration and, like I said, but we haven't gone into that.
okay, well, I hope that you folks will look at some kind of, you know, all the roles that different campuses play, and what's going to be the focus, and so, you know, the public and students themselves, you know, if they're interested in IT, then they know where they probably would want to go, right? And stuff like that, engineering and so forth. Like on Hilo, shouldn't we have an engineering college there because we have Mauna Kea, we have all the astronomy going on, and the people there on the Big Island would be the best likely candidates, and the students, but no, they gotta come to Honolulu to get their degrees because they don't have a school there. Last year, we put money in because we initiated putting engineering programs in Hilo, but they still don't have a four-year program there.
But you have the cybersecurity
We have cyber operations there. Yeah, so we are very, very nimble there, you know, with our divisions. We don't have siloed classes. We do graduate persistence rate, graduation rate is really high within.
So how many students we have in cybersecurity?
Right now is majors. I think
majors.
we're close to about 70, 75 students,
Okay, so
Yeah.
compared to your accounting, that's, you know, really
which is
small.
very large, yes.
Yeah.
Accounting is one of the signature programs of the business field, yeah.
Okay, anything else for Mr. Wahu? Senator Favela, okay.
Like I said, when I was on the neighborhood board, and the presentation, when we all got together with Senator Espiro, and we had high hopes, because our community was growing in hospitality, nursing, and business. And when we asked the question that if Manoa has a curriculum, are we gonna be able to duplicate it here? And I was told no. When I got into this square building, I asked a serious question from the previous president, I don't like mention his name anymore. I asked him, what is your guys' plan for education at the Institute? You guys know what his answer was to me? We're not an educational institute. We're a research institute. So all things that we're talking about here, okay, it was in a hearing, you can go check them back. He told me that in a hearing. The University of Hawaii is a research institute. That's what he told me. You can shake your head, you can go look at the hearing. I got a very good memory. He told me that, and I asked him why he's saying that, because he said, that's what they do. They do research. And everything else is secondary. So what I'm thinking is that's still the mindset of the university, because that was what he said in one of the WAM hearings when I asked him that question.
Let me just clarify that, because according to the policy by the Board of Regents, it's teaching and instruction as the most important. Am I not correct? That is one of your policies.
Yes,
So
that's not what
we are a
yeah.
Research One university, but it's teaching it. I'm just saying what's in the
Yeah,
policy.
yeah,
Now, what
yeah.
he tells you is something else, and I think I remember that at that.
You know, so that's why I get confused, is because it's in you guys' region, whatever, but the reason why I asked him that day, that question, was because of how the research in any other institute around the continent, they have to bring in so much money of their salary. Not here in Hawaii. They don't have to bring 80%, 20%, whatever it is. We subsidize the research department. And that was his answer to me, is because we are a research institute. So maybe it is in the bylaws with the education, what Senator Kim said, but that was his answer to me when I had asked him why, that all the other universities have to bring in so much percent for their research to continue to be the research person on campus. And they have to bring on so much. Reason why I say that is because if you look at how long the University of West Hawaii was open, and if you look into how he had said this, it's more to what he had told me in a hearing, more of a truth, because we weren't about giving somebody who only bring in 10%, 5%, 3% of their research money. but then we subsidize the rest. So if you like, look at the big picture, education is not moving in the direction that whatever the regions say it is, because it's going to what we're seeing on how these guys take all this research all over the place.
Senator Favela, would you like Dr. Sermos to come up and, because he's the head of the research, and maybe he can answer that question about researchers?
Well, while we're waiting for VP Sermos to come up, Senator, the University of Hawaii West Oahu is not the Research One institution. We are a regional public institution, and we're there to make education affordable, accessible, and value-oriented for the community that you serve and
So
the community
that
that
wasn't
we
a question. I
serve.
wasn't saying
Yeah.
anything about the University of Hawaii. I'm telling you the mindset of the president. When I came, the first time I came here in this square building, they had a pie chart showing how much Hilo was getting, West Oahu, and University Manoa. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's what I'm saying. They slow boating over there because the mindset over there in Manoa. I'm not saying that you guys don't offer those great things. I'm just saying that's what he told me in a hearing. You gotta understand, I don't write things down. One thing I have is a good memory of what he tells me. You know what I mean? I don't know what the hula halau he brought to, but anyway, go
Okay,
ahead.
we have a new mindset, so.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I'm Vasily Sirmos. I'm the Vice President for Research and Innovation, UH System. So, Senator Favela, you're partly right. UH Manoa is around 70% of our extramural funding. Last year, out of the 620, they were around $420 million. And then the other $200 million is spread amongst all of our other campuses. So I think what the conversation or discussion you're going for is about teaching equivalencies and where professors get paid from, how they use research funds for general funds.
I think he's referring to salaries for researchers.
Yeah.
Where they usually bring in a good portion of their salaries, 60 to 80% of their salaries via the research grants, right?
Correct.
But all of our
Correct,
researchers are
Senator
paid A funds, which is general funds, right? Most of them.
Not anymore, after we had that discussion 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Yes, I don't know who actually brought that up to our attention. Actually, Manoa has taken a very active role in order to make sure that researchers are charging certain amount of their salary on extramural funds. I think Michael can speak to the percentage. I think it is now in every offer letter for researchers that at least 25% of their salary is, every step counts, Senator Kim. So that is part of the Research One University. We use some of our extramural funds to pay for the salaries and therefore release some of the general funds for tuition and teaching activities, academic activities. So that ties with the teaching equivalencies, which was also discussed 4 or 5 years ago.
So of the 25% now of paying their salaries, what happens to that 25% A funds that you have? That's a windfall now.
That actually, when we talk about the empty positions and how you always going to have at any time at the snapshot, you're going to have 200-300 positions vacant within Manoa. A lot of that is because of the salary savings they have in general funds. So part of that they use in order to fund those vacant positions.
So you're welcome then. You're welcome.
Some things you are correct, and some things maybe not. But yeah, that one was.
What things would that be?
But that one was, actually kudos to Manoa.
So can we get, and you don't have to do that now, but can we get a report on what portion of the researchers are now bringing in 25%? And is it 25% minimum or up to 25%?
No. These are minimums.
Okay.
We should also mention that we just last summer implemented an entirely new classification for faculty. So we don't hire research faculty anymore. That position was abolished. You have to, Senator, I agree again with a lot of what you're saying. If you're not teaching, if you have no interest in teaching, you don't belong at a university.
So can I get a list then, again, like you gave
Sure.
me several years ago that showed which faculty that they were teaching 0 classes and bringing in 0 zero research dollars or
You
intramural
you
funds?
reminded me of that list a few weeks ago,
Yeah,
yes.
so I'm waiting for
we-
it to come. I'm waiting for
We,
it.
we can, I think we can show a lot of
And
progress
I
on
don't
that.
want to raise expectations here. I want to manage expectations. You know, there is what has happened the last 30 years, and there is going forward.
Going forward, I
So you're
understand.
going to see
And I
some of
appreciate
that.
that.
So I need to, we
Right.
need to be
Can't happen overnight. But
honest with
are you going to be moving off of the 25 and go higher at some point? Is there a plan? Do you have a plan of steps to reach a more like 40, which is even still below the national? Because I believe they bring in, what, 60 to 80%? The requirement?
That does happen in organized research units, but in general, on the academic units, on R1 institutions, that is not true. It's a much lower percentage. So
okay.
I don't know
So
how
there's two
Manoa
tiers.
is
There's-
going to deal with that, but, you
can
know,
share that
we
with
are
us.
at the first step, so.
My preference has been to begin also
My
with the,
compliments that you folks are doing that.
yeah, I think we should have a minimum level of teaching of every single person who is
Yes,
labeled a
and
faculty
maybe
member.
the board can do a policy on that, because right now they're saying it's 24 credit hours for Manoa,
Equivalents.
and it's 27 for community colleges, but then you have all these equivalencies that is not being, that gets around.
Yeah. Teaching equivalencies is up to the Board of Regents and also negotiating.
But there should be a minimum without equivalencies of the teaching, component, and that's something I hope the regions will
No
take
doubt
up.
about it.
Sure, so
Yes.
follow up. Reason why we brought this up and was in the hearing was because of the Mauna Kea. So we had a researcher, took some students to Big Island, Hilo, pretty sure it was Hilo because Kona, the hotel was a little bit too expensive. But they went to Hilo and they were supposed to go do some kind of research on Mauna Kea, what was happening on Mauna Kea. And they brought back the bill that Senator Kim was looking through them, and we had questions, and that's how this conversation happened with Mr., the president guy, going forward. Reason for that, it was because when he came back, we found out none of the students would even spend one working hour on Mauna Kea. They was in the hotel. They didn't even get in the car, went up to Mauna Kea to do any of the research that was on the manifest that they said, that they handed in to the guy. And that's the reason why the conversation came up. And it didn't matter if they was there or whatever, they was doing the research, it mattered, but they didn't have to go to Hilo if they wasn't gonna go actually do the research on Mauna Kea. They could have just done them at home and looked through a telescope, I don't know. But that was the reason why this line of questioning came up with me and him. And even if maybe he kind of misspoke on some of the curriculum thing, but I remember that because we was talking about the same thing. The researchers at the time, not now, when you guys doing other good work, was coming in with less, and we had some researchers wasn't even, what's it called, on campus or warm bodies or whatever you like call them, wasn't even in the classroom when they was having students. So that was the concern why I kind of brought it up.
You do have a good memory.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? If not, we will move on. Let's see, CIP. I see Jan has stepped out of the room, or she's come back in. Okay, so if you can give us a update on, well, we were talking about amount of RIM last time, right? What portion of different projects have been, RIM monies have been used, and one of that was the Sinclair, and
Oh,
then
okay.
Chingfield, and
Yep.
What else?
Oh, I don't have it broken down,
You were gonna give us a list of
all the,
all the projects.
how we
that-
expended all the RIM.
all the
We have,
proj-
okay.
projects that was covered by RIM. Because RIM is repair and maintenance, basically, right? When you ask for a lump sum from us, you ask for a lump sum for RIM, which is repair and maintenance.
Well, it's
pretty
more,
much,
I mean,
and
it's
backlogs.
it's more than, it used to be focused primarily on what they call CRDM, right? Capital Renewal Deferred Maintenance. So we moved away from that. RIM is an expanded version of addresses deferred maintenance plus modernization and new projects.
Okay, we didn't see anything when we looked it up that it refers to new projects, pretty much modernization, RIM, when we looked it up, and I think on your guys'
On
site
the-
as well.
on-
That, yeah, it's deferred maintenance and renewal. But, so because you come in specifically for CIP monies, right? For projects, and then you ask for a lump sum to do your pretty much deferred maintenance. And then always say that, you have a backlog because you don't have enough RIM monies. And the concerns we have is that if you're taking RIM monies for new projects, what defeats the purpose of us giving you a lump sum for RIM. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So how much of the RIM monies we've given you over the last couple of years that went to new projects or projects not considered deferred maintenance?
So sometimes we will have deferred maintenance, that's why it's maybe getting hyper-technical here, but if we go in and we renovate a space and it is taking care, part of it will be taking care of deferred maintenance, part of it will be modernizing, right? And so it is more than, it is intended to be more than just deferred maintenance. I mean, that's how it was, at least the program was at least envisioned. I think that we can, I don't have the appropriation language in front of me, I can try to pull it up real quick. It should cover all of that, but the majority of it does go toward primarily deferred maintenance, I would say.
Okay, so can you?
50%.
Can you, we asked for that the meeting on Friday about the list of where the funds are going for each of the years you've gotten the lump sum of RIM.
Oh, okay, I apologize, I didn't catch that. I can get you a detailed description of where all the
Okay.
RIM funds went.
And then we also talked about Atherton and what was the vacancy rate? And you guys are going to get back to me on that?
The Atherton vacancy rate, 7% this
7%.
semester.
Okay. And how many students are actually utilizing the Innovation Center? And using it for the purpose that it was built for innovation? You have any idea how that's going? Who does that fall under?
Shiloh College, I can find that out.
Scheidler? Okay, Scheidler College runs the innovation program in the RISE
In
facility.
the RISE, right? And then there's, what's that? They moved the program out of Schuyler into that, what is that? The innovation program that Susan Yamada? PACE. So PACE is on it. And PACE falls under what? Under Schuyler? Okay, so the vision for that was it would be an innovation hub and students hopefully would be living in RISE that would actually be these innovation type students, right? So it'd be good to get a percentage of how many of the residents, and I know it's not limited, but it'd be good to know how many of the students actually are residing in RISE that are actually in the innovation program
Yeah,
or
we-
utilizing innovation.
We can find that out. I remember in a meeting with Pace and others a year ago that the feeling was that that is the primary advantage of living there. If you're not taking advantage of Pace and that space, maybe it doesn't make as much sense for you to be there
Exactly.
because it's more expensive
Okay.
than the other dorms.
So we had some students go over to PACE, go over to that. And I'm not sure if the regents have been in there and see how
think
it's
they have,
operating going there. But they came back and said they literally saw like 20 people and they saw a lot of the students of the 20 were just there individually by themselves doing homework or doing, on the computer. There was one group in the, and what was it called, innovation room, whatever that room is. But there were like 5 PACE people that work there for PACE. So it seems so it's very underutilized, which was my concern when this whole project was proposed, because we have the Manoa Innovation Center, which I understand is also underutilized, and there's hardly anybody there.
Well, the
know, is that
Manoa
true?
Innovation Center is an incubator for,
Right.
for companies
Right.
out of technology we've developed, hopefully.
But we talked about.
PACE is for students,
Yeah, well, we
and
talked about using part of that, combining Manoa Innovation Center for the innovation students, right? And then they said, oh, no, no, and that, so if we have Manoa Innovation that is being underutilized, and if we have RISE and Innovation Center there being underutilized, I mean, those are spaces, again, are we looking at, AI, are we looking at futuristic things, and where are we going with that? So I hope you folks are re-looking at how we utilize our space, because now you're gonna have Sinclair come online, and that's a student success center. So student success and
Yes, it is.
innovation, I mean, they kind of all lump together, and so it's
it was
depending
part
on
of the
title.
thinking was actually that those students could
Adjacencies.
interact. It's just across the street from each other.
Well, it could have been combined as well, right, with Sinclair.
Programs,
It could have
programs
been.
can be.
So I can talk about the Manoa Innovation Center, which is pretty much full. Actually, it
okay.
is a great source of revenue for the university. Thank
Good.
you. We also have guaranteed around $6 million from the federal government, and we're redoing the first floor.
I have people tell me that it's like deserted. Why is that?
Actually, we're pretty much
Yeah?
full.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
And I don't want to tell you how much money we make because you never know, right? So it is a really good source of revenue for us as an office space and as a lab space for technology companies.
So you
and
don't
other
have any
companies.
open space in there?
We have, but not too many. We have, but not too many. Right now, we have taken the first floor where HCDC used to be, and we have gutted that whole place, and we're going to modernize it, and we secured $6 million from the federal government to pay for that
Very
upgrade.
good, thank you.
Thank you,
I
and
appreciate you coming in
please
and not
don't take
asking
it
for
from us.
I won't, but I can't guarantee others won't. Okay, let's see. How about NOAA? What's happening with NOAA? The graduate housing.
Hale Haukani. It's
What-
been renamed to Hale Haukani,
Hale
and
Haukani,
it is on
okay.
schedule to take occupancy by the fall of this year, fall 2025.
Okay, and what's the cost of that project to us, or to the university?
I'll let our CFO.
Okay,
Good afternoon, Senators.
Good
Calvert Young,
afternoon.
Vice President for Budget and Finance. So Hale Haukani is a approximately $138 million project. The university's contribution is, there was about $8 million order of magnitude for soft costs. So these are pre-project expenses, the consulting work, entitlement, design. And then the University of Hawaii Manoa has committed to contributing $2 million a year for 35 years each year towards rent abatement. But the funds actually help the developer operator. And then there's a childcare facility that was planned to be built as into one of the two towers that comprise the facility. The school facilities authority, SFA, provided $10 million towards the construction of that, the childcare portion, or the area for the childcare portion. And that's the full amount of the university's and the state's contribution.
so SFA is the state. right?
SFA is
It's
a
not the
state
university.
agency, yes.
Okay, so $2 million a year for 35 years.
For 30 years, but that
You said
amount can go
30,
down
35
depending on the
years.
revenue, as I recall, right?
So what I'm saying is UH Manoa, as part of the business structure, UH Manoa is contributing $2 million each year for, I think it's 35 years.
So 70
But-
million.
Yes, but that doesn't I didn't say anything about the actual overall business. So there is forecasted net revenues at some point across what is a 50-year lease, right? So there's the net revenues from the operation come to UH. And the forecast, depending upon, if you hit numbers during the course of the operation, are forecasted to exceed the 2 million a year. So on that arrangement, if that was to materialize in the future, I would foresee that UH Manoa would either, their 2 million contribution would be replenished to them and then some, or they would have a decision about how to reinvest their portion of the net revenues. So overall.
So you pay the 2 million no matter what, and
Pay the 2 million no matter
only
what.
if there's net revenues, then you share it with the developer. Is that correct?
Well, all net revenues
net
come to would end up coming to the university. Yeah.
Okay, is that the similar situation with RISE?
Well, the university is not involved in that business structure.
That's the
with RISE.
foundation.
So the structure might be very similar, but insert UH Foundation for the university. Yeah.
And the foundation has an office where at the university?
Well, the foundation offices is actually in the RISE
Now,
facility.
because they used to be in,
They used to be, well, foundation main office, the same office that is currently located within RISE, used to be located in Bachman before Bachman Hall was closed for renovations. So, but then during that time, RISE has completed, and so foundation is located in their property
so
at
they're not going
RISE.
to locate back to.
The foundation, I believe, still actually has some offices like around UH Manoa, but it's like their call centers or their, it's like smaller space and not their administrative offices.
Do they pay us? Do they pay your?
I don't believe they pay.
Okay, so, and the net revenue is expected, if there's a net revenue, about when?
So net revenues is basically built out on this like pro forma, right? Which is financial predictions across the
But is it like
duration.
yearly or towards the end of the?
Yeah, no, so on the pro forma, so again, these are forecasted or predictions based on assumptions, right? So on the pro forma, it gives you an idea of the financial likelihoods. On the pro forma, I would not advise Manoa or expect that the university is going to be able to generate or receive any net revenues from NOAA within the first 7 years, based on the pro forma. But again, that assumes that a number of the assumptions are hitting on the mark. Maybe they could accelerate that, but again, it assumes on the assumptions.
So where does the 2 million each year come from? Tuition?
That is coming from our tuition reserves. So we have committed that portion of our reserves that we built up since the pandemic. We're moving that over because that money is used specifically to reduce the rent, the cost to the students.
So what is anticipated the cost to be to rent? Is it a market rent?
It's intended to be slightly below market.
So without the $2 million a year subsidy, the desired objective for the university with the operator was to develop a project that has economic viability that keeps the rents below market. But that being said, it was always known that the rents would never be as cheap as they are as on-campus housing presently. So where the numbers, again, match out is they will be slightly cheaper than Atherton, but Atherton is 100% private, no university subsidy. So that's what the $2 million will help to achieve that.
But is it as small as Atherton? Those units, no, they're graduate housing, right? Graduate student housing?
Yeah, they're laid out like apartments.
So they're like apartments.
Yeah.
So you can't really compare it because
No.
you've got Atherton, you've got single room, basically double rooms, and
Yeah.
they're very tiny from my
Right,
understanding.
and common kitchen areas.
Right.
But Atherton, I believe the average bed price at Atherton is in the $1,100 or $1,200 range per month. And I believe NOAA is targeting to get to, sorry, Hawai'i. Hawai'i, when it's operating, is going to target to be just shy of that. So it could be it could also be very close, but in the $1,100 to $1,200 range, but slightly to the south of
For
that.
one apartment,
Bed,
one
no,
bedroom
no,
apartment.
bed.
Bed, so
These are,
what-
these are all bed rates, not unit rates.
But how you come up with the unit rate? Because you're not gonna,
If you're in a two-bed unit, each bed is
right.
$1,100. So if you got two people in there, it's $2,200.
but that's an apartment. Because
Yeah.
you've got two beds at,
And same thing with Atherton. So
but
if
they
it's,
don't
if
have a
it's,
kitchen, they don't have all of that.
yes, but same thing, if it's a per bed rate, even at Atherton. So if you're in a two-bed dormitory room, you will still pay, that room is going to generate.
So can any
$1,100
student
bed.
go into that, or is it only graduate students?
So we're looking at a tier arrangement. So it's graduate students and young faculty, junior faculty who are just joining the university. And we have talked about the possibility, if that doesn't fill it up, to go to perhaps upper level undergraduate students, seniors.
It's not so it's called the waterfall of tenancy, and it's not a problem to expand it to as large a universe that we would want, except that it needs to be University of Hawaii affiliated. So this is not like, student at, say, Chaminade, they would not be available for, but it could be. Right now in the waterfall of tenancy, the university has set with the operator, the number one target intended is graduate students that in need for a apartment style dwelling. But it also can include junior faculty. It can include, other, again, university affiliates.
So does RISE allow for outside UH students?
No,
No?
no.
as well?
Same thing. It has to be University of, doesn't have to be University of Hawaii Manoa, but it has to be University of Hawaii.
Well, I'm glad to see there are going to be more beds, but the concerning part is that we've had deteriorating facilities for our undergraduates. We've had Halinoalani out for 7 years and reduced for our undergraduates. And we're building for graduates and not for, we haven't been doing enough for our undergraduates and their living situation. So again, we need to start looking at how do we prioritize some of these things that are going on. So then let's talk about McCarthy Mall. So, they put a lot of resources on the mall that I don't necessarily understand if that should have been prioritized over some of the needs that we have elsewhere. I know part of it is the building, but part of it is the mall area, right? Which I understand is very nice. And these are expansions or further improvements, but we've got crumbling dorms.
Yeah. So the McCarthy Mall revitalization project did get started a little bit before the student housing situation.
But you folks
became a
knew the
priority.
student housing situation
Understood.
when you embarked on
Understood.
McCarthy Mall, come on.
But the impact, the impact on the student body is going to be greater along the McCarthy Mall improvements, right? Within our residence halls, it's closer to, there's a finite number of beneficiaries, whereas the investment in McCarthy Mall has a much broader, it'll be the 20,000 students that are on campus, the 5,500 employees that work
Yes,
on campus.
but it's already there and it's already serving that that number
Well, it
of
was too
students.
narrow. I mean, we got people on bicycles, skateboards, people are walking. It was becoming a little bit, it was congested. And so we needed to expand it anyway.
Understand.
Yeah.
But again, if everything else is equal and we said you only have X amount of dollars, where would you put it first?
Well, but
That's kind of
I think when it comes to student housing, we don't need to we've already demonstrated, we don't need to come to the state. We can get a private developer to build it because you have
So
guaranteed.
the money you're asking us now for, no, you don't need that
No,
then.
we do.
Okay,
For a
There
new,
is-
for a new
for
dorm.
you, for
No,
you,
no,
yeah.
you
I'm
guys
talking about
better
for,
coordinate, because
sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no, please.
you just got your money's cut.
Don't get us into a fight. We like each other.
In fact, my phone's ringing, people are asking for that money.
No, so I'm talking about a new build, for a new building.
Well,
If we're looking at
you've
it.
got Holly-No and Lonnie that's sitting there that either needs to be demolished and put up new, or something has to happen to that. And you've got old buildings that are falling apart.
Yes.
Students, I don't think you'd live in those
Yeah,
buildings.
no, right. Yeah,
So, come on, let's be real about this.
That's true.
So. Okay, anything else on those? I'm going to do one last area, the PBS site. What are we doing with the PBS site? You guys demolished the building.
It's almost demolished, and I think we are, because that parcel, what we've been calling the Eva parcel, which is about 9 acres. We are in the process of, and this is again a CFO-led project, but let me know if I'm butchering what your project is, Cal. But at a very high level, we are working with the community and doing community reach out to see what can be envisioned for that entire 9-acre parcel. The PBS site, if we do something ahead of schedule or something on a different timeline than the rest of the parcel, it needs to be aligned with where we want to go at the very beginning. Yeah.
And then you folks will certainly be transparent about
Yes.
what's going to go on there. right?
Yes.
'Cause there's a lot of
We have to
concerns.
be. Yes. No question.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
before we embark on Cancer Center, I have a follow-up on, maybe Calvert, you can answer this. So the legislature started asking for travel records, and I know you folks submitted it, but did you see how the travel records are being submitted to us? Does that falls under you? Who does that fall under?
I saw what was submitted.
So you saw all we got was data, travel, purpose, and cost. So we get data, travel, and then purpose, conference/seminar, meeting, other. We don't know where it is at. We have no idea. And then the cost. So are do we have to come back with a memo telling you that we need a little more specifics on that?
So I think from the last meeting last week, I think we took note of your comment regarding more detail in the travel. So if there wasn't anything else, we could probably look at how to rerun the report.
Yeah, because
yeah.
it
But I,
defeats the
so
purpose.
if that's what you would like, I mean,
Well,
you have
it's
to
hard to
resubmit the report.
determine why we're seeing a 3-day trip, conference seminar costing $3,162, and we have no idea, was that to California, was that to Europe, was that to, where? We have no idea. Seminar, what kind of conference? Is it, on, I don't know, how to improve yourself versus, university business? We don't know, and that's the whole purpose of getting this.
So last time, I think we heard location was an interest, but
we've
the
asked for travel
actual detail
records
of the
from
purpose of the.
From others, and they have provided us with, the type of seminar they went to and where it
Okay.
was. I mean, that's not really hard to do, right?
Okay.
Because you folks have those records. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you on that, and yes, go ahead.
The only reason why we ask, I guess, for all the departments, not just the university, because we're having travel that they take, we don't know what is the benefit to the state of Hawaii, to the university, to the taxpayers. We don't know. They're just giving us numbers. What was the reason for the trip? And what was the result of the trip? If they went to a seminar, what they brought back to disseminate to the kids or the university. We need to know that kind of stuff because that's the questions they ask, and that's the reason why we had that very intense hearings for the movies, because they was traveling all over the world and nobody knew where it was going and how much it really benefited the movie industry. As you can tell, it went down. We don't have a actual series here now. So going forward, I know that's what we want to know. If when you take a trip and then you guys put in who approves the trip, why was the trip taken, and what was the benefit to the college, or the students, or the state of Hawaii? Something like that, in brief. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so, in the case of the Hilo Chancellor, I counted 38 trips for 1 year, and 10 of them were for board regent meetings, so I minus that out, 10 meetings, 28 trips for Chancellor, and you wonder, 28 trips each month. There were months where I don't know, that person was even there for some of the months, so that's troubling. So then we had questions on your travel, Chancellor. Because according to what you submitted you only submitted for 6 trips, but we found that there were others. There was one from 9/18 to 10/13 that cost $10,000, $10,900. So, that's concerning. And were there trips that wasn't put on? Did the West Oahu band play in December in Chicago?
In January, in December.
In December, right? December 18 to 21. Did you go to that?
Yes.
But you didn't put it down on this list.
The list went through to the members, so we have it on whatever you receive.
So you didn't project it out for us?
No, because it's not a completed travel, and so it wouldn't actually appear on a record that would be transferred to the travel.
So did you also go to a trip on Puerto Rico on November 19th?
No, I did
No,
not.
you didn't? Okay. Okay, these are just concerns that was raised and brought up to our attention, so thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no Puerto Rico. No.
So this will follow up, so what, not so much just you, but any of them that taking the trips that is on that list, who approves it? Do they self-approve their own travel? You guys have a process of saying, like, I give you an example. Since, and I don't mean to bring up D-Bed and then Dane Wicker, but they came up with a good plan for have them put them in and submit them. So they submit them to Dane Wicker them, and they look at it, and they approve if it's beneficial to the movie industry or to D-Bed itself, or not to approve it, because what is the benefits of going someplace that we're not gonna bring back revenue, or even education material, well, however you guys go on a trip. That is different because they're performing. But when you take these trips, I just wanna see if you guys, I'm not saying you guys don't, but have the mindset to let the public know that you guys taking this trip because in the best interest of the university and the students and the taxpayers' money. That's the little thing that when I was sitting down with Senator Kim, that was kind of troubling because I just see numbers. I don't see, I submitted this to you, right, I don't think you're gonna approve it, but I sent it to you on December 10th. My trip is gonna be December 31st. That kind of process, because if it's not done that way, then how can we answer to the public on travel? I'll give you guys another example. So when we go to neighbor islands for WAM, and believe me, we work hard. I don't know if you guys have been on a trip. We work hard. Senator De La Cruz gave us homework. We gotta go back to the hotel and read everything that we did that day and what experience that we had entitled and what we got out of the trip. And when we do that every single trip that we go on, and let me tell you, sometimes they give us 20-something questions just before 10 o'clock, and we gotta get up the next morning. Not saying that I sleep late, but those are the kinds of stuff. I'm not saying you guys don't, but we're not seeing it.
Yeah, no, so first of all,
Yeah.
I am not the travel
No.
guru or czar at the
No,
university,
no.
so.
I'm not saying that.
But travel, there is policies and procedures at the university. Travel has to be, any type of travel has to be approved, depending on the employee, at least 2 levels. It takes at least 2 to approve. So even for myself, example, or everyone under me, even everybody under them, under the managers under me. And same thing, right? There's a whole lot of justification that is required to go through the bureaucratic hierarchy of getting travel pre-approved before travel occurs. Similarly, the university also has policies and procedures, financial policies and administrative procedures that require post-travel completion. So within a fixed number of days after you come back from travel, you need to close out the travel. And that also has to be approved for your submittals to get it closed. And there are implications for not closing travel. If you have financial reimbursements that you're expecting, you don't get that until it's financially closed on system. So it is pretty extensive. The benefit of the university actually is that all of our travel requests is done electronically. So even the approval or the approvals. So this type of information, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to get filled out, but it's electronic. So extracting it, it's a matter of what do you want from what has been submitted? Yeah.
So let me ask this. So I know on some of these trips, they say 3-day trip, 4-day trip, right? Do they take into consideration the travel time? Because I know when I have to travel, and if I gotta go to Chicago, if I gotta go to DC, I have to leave a whole day in advance to even get there. And then to come home, you can't really come home the same day after, because anything after, 8 o'clock in the morning, you gotta wait till the next day. So you have to spend an extra day there. So is that part of that?
So I think on that report, I think the dates that are provided, like the start and the end, are actually reflective of the actual travel. It's not the event itself, it's the.
Okay, because some of these seminars are 2-3 day seminars, and it says 2 to 3 days. And but so then,
Yeah, but I think on that report, the date that is, because it has like beginning date and end date, I think those are taken from, again, I'm not the travel, sorry on that, but I believe those correspond to the fields on the travel system. So if it's just an extraction to complete that report, I have to believe that whoever extracted it, they're just pulling the dates of the beginning, yeah. So I mean, if I looked at that report and I saw it, I could presume that perhaps they flew in on the day that it started. They didn't fly in the night before, or they left the event before the conclusion of the event, but on the last day or something. But that's the beginning end date.
I know, because, we have a hard time when we have seminars. that
I don't like
start-
to, I do not, I don't travel a lot at all, but when I do, I really, I cannot fly in the night or the morning of, and, so.
Literally you can't, because even though you fly the red eye, you get there like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, if you can get it that early. Most times you're like 11, 12
Yeah,
o'clock.
logistically, it's
And
not
it's
realistic,
dark.
but
Right, so you
also
gotta go a whole
mentally, and,
day ahead.
you're not prepared. Yeah, but that's me, and I guess that's you. But I think people who travel more, they're probably more accustomed to being able to handle that type of
I don't know that. It's
itinerary.
hard.
Yeah, I don't know, but.
It's just that the seminars don't start late. So
Yeah.
you gotta, if you go, you almost have to go a day in advance and then stay, because a lot of times if they pay they're giving you a scholarship and paying for you to go, then they expect you to
Expect
stay
you there.
from the
Yeah,
time
yeah.
it starts to the time it ends. And
Yeah.
so you cannot leave early, or you shouldn't be leaving early.
Yeah,
because-
so I wouldn't be able, or Chancellor, I guess, none of us would be able to look at that list and be able to give you the intimate details about
Yeah. well,
that, but if there are any.
If we wanted,
it
we
would-
can ask for it. I'm sure you have that. I brought it in. But I guess as going forward, maybe we'd be more specific to say, when did you actually leave and when did you return, kind of thing.
Got it. So-
That's in the system.
So are you asking to resubmit that report, or?
No, well, just,
for
I think
next
we
year,
just,
tickler for
yeah,
next
and
year,
we need
or?
to know, I think, where, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I know it's getting late. Cancer Center. Okay, so, can you tell us what is the annual operating expense for the Cancer Center? Like for the last 2 years?
I think we have the Cancer Center Assistant Director for Administration here,
Okay, then come
Cliff
forward.
Martin.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Cliff Martin. I'm the Associate Director for Administration.
Sorry, I demoted you. I said assistant.
That's okay. For the UH Cancer Center. In fiscal year 2024, our annual expenses were 66,600,000.
66 million, the annual expense of 2024. How about 2023?
50,960,000.
50 million,
50.
50. So 16 million more for 2024.
Yes.
What made that go up?
Primarily federal funds.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. How much income or revenues did you get for 2024? I know for 2024, you got 8.6 million in cigarette tax.
Cigarette tax.
Where did the rest of the money come from to be 66 million?
Sources of funding. Yeah, so for grants, we consider the expenses the same as revenue for the year. So we had 26, I'm sorry, for fiscal year 24, 26.9 million in federal funds
24.
expended.
Okay, federal.
Other funds that are, there were some private funds of 2.1 million.
Okay,
These are also really considered grants.
okay,
And then we have allocated funds,
okay.
which are the special funds that you mentioned, the 8.6 million. We had about a total of 10 million in general funds allocated to us. Initially, about 5 million, and then the governor allocation of an additional 5 million. There was a small amount of tuition funds allocated to us, 666,000, I'm sorry. We have what's called RTRF, or Research, Training, and revolving funds. And those are funds that initially come to the university through the grants as facilities and administrative costs, and they're later divided up and allocated to the units who generated them. And we were allocated 4.4 million. Those are the primary sources of funds.
But it doesn't come up to 66 million.
So that, yeah, so there's other, I'm looking at a gray area in this report. Other was 1.1 million in UHF funds. There was 1.6 million in shared resource funds that amount to, we provide services that grants pay for, like the use of a microscope. So the microscopes are very expensive. They're $500,000 or more to buy. And so each individual PI can't really buy a microscope on their own. We have one set aside for folks to use and charge for the use of them. And we have several what we call shared resources or cores that provide services or equipment like that. That's what the 1.6 million amounts to.
So literally, every dollar that came in, you spent it. Is that right?
Not exactly. I would say that if you could look at, for instance, Dr. Sirmos produces a report of how much grant activity comes in for each component. And I can say that last year, while we spent 26.9 million, we were awarded 41 million. There's the difference there is in construction grant that we received, 6.5 million from HRSA. So there's,
From the state.
yeah, that was previous, and a few years ago, yeah, we have 6.5 from the state, 6.5 from NIH, and we got an additional 6.5 from HRSA last year. And so 41 includes the 6.5 million. There are other grants that we receive that the expenditures aren't ramped up yet. And so we'll see those expenditures happen in the future years.
So all of that income coming in, nothing was put into reserve? Nothing was put in to pay the debt service at some point?
Not reserved for debt service, no. A lot of those funds are purpose funds for particular projects that cannot be used for
Right,
debt
but
service.
the the cigarette tax monies is certainly intended to pay for the debt service
Yeah,
in
yes.
addition, right? So in all that, that was not done. According to the Cancer Center Fund, that sheet that I got as far as how much tax, from 2007, when the tax started, you folks got, or the Cancer Center got 7.6 million. In 2008, you got 14.9 million. In 2009, you got another 19.1 million. 2010, you got 18.379 million. And there was no debt service at that time because the building wasn't built yet. So approximately $60 million in taxes, income with no debt service. And then in 2011, you got 16 million, and the debt service is only 2.4 million. So you got another $14 million there, 74 million in just those 5 years, and nothing was put in reserve for future debt service? I know you weren't here, but.
Yeah, I can't
or
speak
maybe-
to
Maybe you
what-
were here.
The amount of funds that were not spent remained in reserve in that fund.
So how much in reserve do you have now?
About 12 million.
You got 12 million in reserve. Oh, I wasn't, I thought we asked that question and you said you didn't have anything in reserve. 12 million. Okay, so 12 million and you're getting 8 million, 0.6. So, and your debt service is approximately 6.97 million
Right,
dollars.
correct.
Okay. In 2014 and 2015, when the taxes started to go down, well, actually it was 15 million in 2014 and 14 million, 0.8 in 2015. This was when the regents had that discussion in the minutes, and actually the president acknowledged that this was a very difficult time and that we needed to really look at the tax because it was dwindling. Nothing happened at that time to start to put money away, knowing that the tax was starting to get depleted.
There have been efforts over time. I'll have to say that there were a few years that money was put into what's called a repair and replacement reserve, which is separate from a reserve for the debt service, so that there was an amount put in there. There's currently about, I think, 3.5 or 4 million available in that reserve at this time.
So you have 3.5 million in reserve for,
repair and replacement, and it can only be used for repair and replacement projects. So if your chiller goes down, for repair of that, or the roof leaks, that kind of thing. Capital expenditures.
Okay, so in 2016, at the board regents meeting, 2016, I'm sorry, the January 27, 2016 meeting, President Lasner remarked that the center has been a primary subject of attention during his tenure as president, and that soon after becoming interim president, it became apparent that the center needed attention because the center's expenditures substantially exceeded its revenues. Center's expenditures substantially exceeded its revenues, and once substantial reserves were declining precipitously. He recounted how the legislature last January grilled him as to why the university had not requested funding to fill in the financial gap. He said he had not been provided with a clear path forward and plan, and he was confident that would eventually balance the budget and achieve success. This is now in 2016. In the fall, he requested board support in submitting a request to the legislature, even though there was still no plan. Still no plan. Still no plan. And so I'm asking you today about your plan to address both short-term and long-term challenges. We've been asking for a long-term plan. Have you guys received a long-term plan for the Cancer Center? No? Okay, this is 2016, it's in your board minutes, which is what I'm reading from. It has come more slowly than he had hoped and expected, and the path has been tortuous with twists and turns. He certainly did not expect any clear wishes they had avoided. Clearly wishes they had avoided. He learned many lessons that will help him should they find themselves in this situation again. 2016. This is 2025. We didn't learn any lessons within that time.
Yeah, it was in that year, Chair, when the university hired a new director of the Cancer Center, Randy Holcomb, and he was requested to put together a plan. And also, that was the time when they were really urgently preparing for another round of the NCI review. So task number one was preparing for that. He was successful with that, and they received 5 years of funding. I know that he gave updates to the board. I'm not sure if there was a
But
plan.
didn't at that time with, they did the Warbird study as part of this whole thing?
Warburg preceded Randy.
Warbird was more like in the 2015 range, 2014 to 2015
October
range.
16, 2015.
Yeah, that was before that director arrived.
And then we had another summary study that came out. And so maybe, Basilis, you want to come up and talk about all these studies?
Oh, you can stay there.
No, Bruno, you should stay. You should stay.
Vasilis Irmos, I'm the Vice President for Research and Innovation. So
Because you were here back in this time.
I was here,
right?
yes.
So you remember the concerns raised, which is
Yes.
why we got Warburg and other studies, right?
So the first study was released in the university study, not any external study, in 2015, January 2015. It is posted on our website. It was done by the Research Advisory Board of my office. Actually, Regent Henning was part of that study as a professor of the medical school at that time. And the study actually had three parts. One was the programs, one was the clinical trials going forward, and the third one was the financials. I want to say that the financials
That was
actually,
this one, right?
if that's the 2015, yes,
Yes,
yeah.
2/9/2015.
So the financials actually were pretty spot on. Actually, if you run it, we had run them 10 years out. We knew exactly pretty much within a couple $100,000 where we would be. Actually that study showed that the Cancer Center would have been in the red much earlier, but because of the generosity of Governor Ige and Governor Green and the support of the Manoa campus, the Cancer Center has been able to actually operate within the black. So,
When you say support of them, you meaning infusion of cash,
correct.
right? Not a
Yes.
plan, not anything long-term, but just an infusion of cash. That was
Correct.
temporary, right? Band-Aid.
I think, I'm not sure about Governor Egas or Governor Green's support. Calvert would know whether it's temporary or permanent, but I think the Manoa support is permanent, right, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's mostly in the form of faculty
Yeah.
salaries.
But what really has given longevity to the Cancer Center over the last 6, 7 years, if you look at the numbers, is the infusion of that between $3 to $5 million in general funds by Governor Egas, started with Governor Egas and then with Governor Green, which they both have been
How much
very
was that?
supportive of the Cancer
5
Center.
million, right?
This year, I think, was 5 million. Usually what the governor does is, we have a restriction every year, I think it's 5%. So both Governor Ige and Governor Green have been generous and say, Manoa, take back, I'll give you back the restriction of the 5%, if and only if you use that 5% to support the Cancer Center. And that varies between $3.5 to $5 million, I think, Michael, right? Yeah. So that's what has put the Cancer Center in the black the last, I want to say 6, 7 years. It is a huge help.
And then in 2022, there was a study by the Regents.
Yeah,
right?
that's a different study. So now we're talking about the day-to-day the operations of the Cancer Center as a Cancer Center. So later, and the Regent Higaki, I think, had asked for a report about a different project, which is the early phase clinical trials, which was launched, if I'm not mistaken, back when Randy Holcomb came in as a Cancer Center director. So we commissioned a report. We didn't commission, we actually asked the Chief Medical Officer of Queens, the Chief Medical Officer of Hawaii Pacific Health, I think Dean Shapiro, who was at that point the Executive Director at the UHP, Amy Grace, who is the Director of the Health Initiatives under my office, and there is a fifth person, which I don't remember. Yes, Joe Ramos, Dr. Ramos. So to look a little bit about the early phase clinical trials and what is reality, whether the performance, the business plan,
What was the results? Because I have it here.
the result is that in order for that early phase clinical trials to be successful financially, you have to increase the throughput rate of cancer patients that go into these studies. I think Dr. Holcomb's plan had a relatively low number of people entering those studies. So the committee thought, and that I was not part of that committee, the committee thought that in order for that to make a little bit more sense financially, you got to increase that rate. And one way to increase that rate is maybe to increase the clinical trials period beyond the early phase stage. So that was one of their recommendations.
Well, it has here the insufficient patient enrollment targets, growth from 20 research subjects in 1 year by 100 by year 5 is quite ambitious for
Yes.
phase 1 only
Yeah.
program. But then the numbers we got though actually is basing it on these numbers or even more numbers. Attainment of 100 enrolled patients go at year 5 average 2 patients per day.
I am not a medical.
Over-reliance on philanthropic support, that's another.
Yeah, the philanthropic support is a big part of that business plan. And again, If you don't have patients, usually the philanthropic support is not as high, right? Usually when you touch patients, that's when the philanthropic support goes up. And that is clearly the case at JAPSA.
They talk about legal risk may not be sustainable under current business plans. Yeah, so what was the final, what in your opinion, summary of this study?
I think it's over there that it's a risky operation. That's my opinion. As I told you in the past, and I have told to everybody in the past, that I don't believe in these business plans. Healthcare is not a break-even type of operation. So,
But yet, Holcomb said it was gonna be self-sustainable or even make money, but, right? And that's
that's
what's
ambitious
also being
goals.
said now. So back to the Warburg, which was done, in 2015, and this study was done 2022. And in Warburg, I'm gonna state that it says here, Hawaii's state population, along with other factors, will always prevent University of Hawaii Cancer Center from matching the scope and scale of many other major NCI designated centers. And then they said, University of Hawaii Cancer Center should not attempt to create its own clinical operation at Kaka'ako. For them to have optimal performance, UH research focus must find synergy with existing clinical operations, including consortium members. And they go on. So back in
I think that's where we are.
2015, when we were looking at sustaining the cancer center, and I remember Representative Luke, when she was the head of FIN, said maybe we should close the cancer center because we were concerned about the monies, the taxes dwindling and not being able to sustain the center. And this was commissioned by the foundation to help us guide what we should do so that our cancer center does not go under. And yet, despite this, there's been no long-term plan, and we've embarked on new programs.
I think we're in a different landscape now, Chair. The health systems, in particular, Queens Health System, has stepped up as a major partner in the early phase trials as well as later phase trials in which we're engaged. And the Cancer Consortium has grown significantly over the last 3 years. So that provides a stable source of income and real partners out in the healthcare
But if it's
systems.
stable, then why are you asking for us to give monies to pay for the debt service and raise the tax if that's stabilizing it?
Because we're seeing the reality of not being able to fill that gap in the declining revenue. So the request is to, and I know there's some,
So why are we embarking on even another program
yeah,
that's come up?
yeah. This is an immediate need
It's
that,
that Ka'ume Ke Lama, another program that's
yeah.
just being launched, that goal is for, what, $10 million.
Well, that is aiming to increase the number of oncologists here in Hawaii. That's a partnership with the medical school in developing.
Is there a business plan that we can see in the numbers on this?
That I don't
I mean,
know.
we don't even have a business plan for the cancer center at this point.
No, I don't know if that has a plan to.
University of Hawaii Manoa UH Cancer Center Director, Naoto Ueno. So that there is an ongoing business plan development with JAPSOM and basically the HP, Hawaii Pacific Health and Queens. There is a discussion about aiming for July 2027, whether launch of medical oncology fellowship is feasible or not. And so I would not say that there is a definitive business plan, but there is an ongoing discussion with all partners.
Okay, but so we're not sure at this point whether this is going to go forward. Yet this article make it seem like it is.
The commitment from the CEO of the HPH and Queens is committed, and they have stated Of course, if you ask me that, is there a written statement, then no, but they have gave assurance that they are committed, that this is needed, given that we are going to be facing a significant deficiency of medical oncology, medical oncologists in the entire island. And as you may know, that currently we have 0 permanent medical oncologists in the Big Island, and there is some urgency. So therefore, both HPH and Queen is considering this education or creation of the medical oncologist as a top priority in specializing of care.
So what about their commitment to the cancer center? Because they do commit, right? And then there's also this thing where Queens is going to be leasing out space.
Correct.
Do we have a contract for that?
We do not yet have a contract. There's still ongoing discussions. Queens has been looking at moving, for example, equipment to the Kaka'ako campus. Some of these would end up being, in a sense, in-kind contributions. So now the Cancer Center folks have access to that equipment. So that would bring down the cost.
Well, that's what's concerning me, because since I've been asking these questions back in Holcomb, we have no real written commitment. And everything is, we're in discussions.
Yeah.
We're in discussions.
Yeah.
They've committed, nothing in writing.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
I've
fair.
met with Queens, and they said they give $5 million now. They're not going to give any more. Of course, we didn't talk about this because this wasn't brought up back then. But they said, you know, there's other partners that haven't been giving as much money from the consortium. So they're limited at this point. But we keep hearing stuff, you know, they're in discussions and that we're basing it on that. We can't just base it on that. We have to base it on some basic numbers. So do you have a business plan, a financial plan for the center as to its longevity at this point?
So thank you very much for this important question. I totally agree that having the understanding of the finance is extremely important. So the business plan of the EPCRC has been provided last year, and
That's not a business plan. That was just a budget. And all that did was increase the numbers over what Holcomb had given us, which, again, based on the studies, saying it was overly ambitious. And yet you had a, and I have it here, you had an aggressive one and a not so aggressive one, and they were still more than what Holcomb had projected, which in itself was ambitious based on this, not based on what I'm saying, but based on the studies.
Yeah, the Holcomb plan did not at all have the level of partnership with the 2 major healthcare systems. The difference in the recent past, especially over the last 2 years, is that Queens and HPH have come up.
This is the Holcomb
Yeah,
budget.
no, I remember.
Okay, and this is what they said year 1, year 2. This is what was submitted last year, which is basically the same thing. 400,000, 400,000, 800, basically the same thing. Some of the numbers went up, and then the more, well, this is the aggressive, this is the conservative. But basically, the numbers just changed. That is not a business plan. This is just a aspirational budget at this point. And then, according to Holcomb, the first year was going to be 2022. Well, that certainly passed. And these, I don't know what this is. And then this was based on, these numbers were based on us building out the early clinical trials, which we didn't build it out because you only could build part of it because you ran out of money. It was going to cost, you know, what, $13 million. That's what we were told, 13 million. It turned out we had to get another 6 million, 6.5 million, and we still couldn't build it out. So already the projections for that has been off.
Yeah, that's
Completely
true.
off. So it's very hard to take these numbers without you giving us a full, complete business plan on what's going to, how we're going to do this.
I totally agree, Senator, that your concern is a valid one, and there's a need for more accurate stress tests needed on the operation. And so we are going to open our first phase 1 trial, hopefully in March and April. So we are doing a pilot to understand the details of the impact, because the key is, as you pointed out, and I totally agree, that definitive really in terms of details and how accurate this is going to be. And some of the number has been adjusted based on the increase of the cost. But what I could say at this moment is that there is going to be a site visit with this one company, and it is a phase 1 study. We have a clinic on the Diamond Head side, and based on this is going to be our testing ground of how much this is more accurate and how well this will help us. Now, our goal is to open several pilot study even before opening the actual physical area. And in September 19th, that was UH Manoa, that we are excited that we went to that phase 2 portion, and we're kind of waiting to see when the construction is be done. But as you pointed out, this operation has to be really more accurate, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, so your budget says FY 2026, FY 27, you're projecting 30 patients, I'm sorry, 30,000 average reimbursement per patient. So, and you're not even going to start in 2026, are you?
Well, you're starting the
Pilot.
now.
Right, so this whole thing that you've submitted to me last year. So you've been, what, 2 years now as a director?
2 years.
2 years as a
Yes.
director. And I've asked you from year one for the plan and update, and this is all you've given us.
Right.
So
And
are you
I
full-time?
apologize, we are kind of excited about where things are going, because one, we have to renew the NCI designation. My job was to be provided that to stabilize the cancer center.
Yes,
and then-
exactly.
and
That's
then,
my concern, that
right.
we're not stabilizing and you're jumping into all of these other projects, which I understand, you have a passion there. But our first and foremost is the health and welfare of the cancer center, because we don't want that to go bankrupt.
Right.
Okay, and it seems like the expenses is exceeding $16 million more from 2023 to 2024 was expended. And yes, you're getting all this other monies, but in the meantime, you're coming to us now, you can't pay the debt service, you're concerned about that, you want to increase the tobacco tax. That's not a long-term solution.
I agree.
Because the 2% tobacco tax is going to bring us what, $7 million, $6 million? Period. And I'm sorry, Dr. Bueno, but you are quoted in the paper to say that this is going to stabilize your funding and allow you to focus on advanced cancer. And a 2-cent increase in the cigarette tax is an investment with profound return. It's a dwindling return. $7 million is not going to sustain the center. And because you're going to add the tax, less people are going to smoke because it's going to be costly. And that's what we hope, that they don't smoke. So you're going down a path that is, and we've told you that and asked you, where is your plan? So you've had 2 years. And so are you full-time at the cancer center?
Yes.
Yes, you're full-time.
Yes,
Okay.
1.0 FTE, yes.
Okay, and I believe your salary is about what, $565,000, something like that?
I wish.
535,000, 535,000. Holcomb was 429,000. So do you also see patients and work separately from
Yeah.
the cancer center?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how often is that? And how much time does that take up?
I spend about a half a day a week.
Under the terms of Dr. Ueno's appointment, he is allowed, as
Right.
similar to our faculty, 1 day per 7 days, so essentially 8 hours a week. But I know that he spends less than that because I have to approve
Right.
his conflict of interest and his outside employment.
And so you see patients about 1 day a week, or
half a day.
half a day a week. And you are compensated from that for HPH, is that correct?
I'm not compensated from the HPH. I am compensated by UHP.
The practice plan.
So it's in addition to the salary of 500.
That's in
In
addition to
addition,
his salary.
and that is approximately.
And when he was appointed, his salary was 425. So you might be reading.
Well, that's
the-
including, the
yeah,
535
that would
includes,
include the practice plan
practice?
compensation.
okay, because I know with Holcomb it was in addition to.
Yeah, this is different.
Okay, that's why his numbers were lower.
No, and the appointment, Dr. Ueno's appointment was quite a bit more formal in many ways in that regard.
Okay, and then I noticed on your travel, you took 16 trips in 2024, 15 trips in 2023. A lot of days, 87 work days in 2024. And so I'm just concerned. Been here 2 years, you've been asking for a business plan. Your focus, I'm not sure that, and we're not getting it, so, and it's so important to us that I would think that your whole focus would be on how do we get us out of this mess that we're in long-term. And instead, we're seeing an increase in expenses, we see a dwindling, and we see no plan, no long-term plan. So I'm not sure where we're going on this.
What I'm saying in the last year, Chair, first of all, there was great success in the NCI designation. So there is that very large annual funding that is now insured for the cancer center. So that really was the primary task before Dr. Ueno when he arrived. So that is done, and now the focus.
Multitask, right? I mean,
No,
you can't
of
just do
course,
one
of
thing.
course.
Come on,
But the focus has been, alongside that, strengthening the collaborations with the hospitals, with the health
But that's
systems.
the
and-
one major thing is the cancer. You're the head director of
Yeah.
the cancer center,
Yeah.
not the early clinical trials, not
Yeah.
anything else. It's the cancer center to benefit the people of Hawaii. And I know the regions talked about how important cancer center is, why they should come in and ask us for the money for the debt service without even asking questions about, is there any reserve? Are we exercising fiscal constraint, knowing that it's going down and knowing that you just can't come in and ask us for cash every year? How are we going to address that? You have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one, Doctor. I just want to, in addition to working as a physician, did you have any experience in administration and managing complex organization like the Cancer Center prior to being hired at the university?
I was a faculty at University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center, and I was the executive director of the Morgan Welch Inflammatory Breast Cancer Research Program and Clinic, which covers the entire MD Anderson related to topic to this disease.
So then the answer is yes, you have administration skills to run the center.
Yes.
How long
That-
were you there doing that?
I was working at MD Anderson for 30 years, and for that position for 10 years. And I brought the program to be successful, to be the strongest in the world.
So that you were executive director of this program and clinic for 10 years,
Yes, I think it was 10 years, I believe.
okay? So then you should be more than able to provide us with a business plan and put together
Well,
something, aren't you?
so my position is that allocation of the budget is highly dependent on working with UH Manoa and also the cigarette tax. And therefore, when you actually look the pocket of the money that exists, it's the philanthropic activities, which was in a very difficult position 2 years ago. And we are successful putting the plan and gradually increase. But the core of how the Cancer Center could do financially reasonably is dependent on this early phase clinical research center. And this is really, I believe, including yourself, that we have to address this. And the other is the EVA side open space, how this is going to be used. And I've been questioned probably twice every time. And so we finally have a more solid path. But once again, if you ask me that, do I have a contract with Queens? The answer is no, but it is, well, we do have a MOA that they will be moving their oncology service to the 3rd and 4th floor, and we are still in that process to make it solid.
Right, but how much is that going to bring in?
Well, that's still under negotiation and discussion at this moment.
Okay, but then you need to have some plan as to if this.
I totally agree with you, Senator Kim. I wish.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. The only reason why I bring this up is because, okay, you have this administration management for the cancer center, but NCI, the Center for being a director, the director is highly qualified in scientist, administrator with leadership expertise, experience, expertise, appropriate, established, and vision for the center. Advancing certificate goals and managing complex organization, he or she is effective in using just what Senator Kim is saying, is that we understand you have this other experience, and I'm not one for talk about any kind of degrees or experience, but when you're coming to the money, and I said this a little bit in the WHAM hearing, yeah, you know that, well, not you because you wasn't there that long, but when you guys knowing that there's a trend, that the funds is depleting, when are you guys gonna show on rescue or on life vet, or anything to try to secure the spending or I don't like to use the word mismanaging, but to the extent of not managing correctly, I guess, I don't know if I can use that word, going forward. Because that's what they ask, and I'm not saying that you don't, I'm not a expertise on that, but what she's asking, and I'm sitting here and listening, it has me kind of hard to understand what, I mean, not hard to understand, I understand why we kind of in the predicament that we are. And like I said, maybe not just necessarily with you or the situation, but the observation is that. Thank you.
Oh, no, I was talking to her.
Okay. So that's what that's what waving me off.
Thank you for your input, really appreciate it.
That's all it is. That's an observation. I'm sitting here just listening and try to figure this thing out because, I'm not the greatest general math person. That's all I had when I was in high school. But once the thing depleting, you know what I mean? You look at your bank account, insufficient funds, but it's not there yet. But when are we going to say when? And when are we going to bring in more revenue or have the complexity of trying to figure out bringing in more revenue, collaborating. You guys say you guys bringing this in, but you guys don't have an MOU. You guys don't have a lot of stuff that's not there yet. But how long you been there?
2 years.
2 years. So we have a MOU with Queens
But
Health
no
System.
contract.
Oh, no contract.
Right.
Okay.
That's accurate. And then we have a testing ground of opening a trial that is going to be really critical to give you more accurate number. Clear.
And that starts in 2 months.
Right.
Correct. The contracting, we're aiming around March or April at this moment.
But every study that we have seen, every review that we have seen, every consultant that I've talked to and showed them the plan, and including the ones we've had from Warburg saying that clinical trials is not going to be self-sustaining, it's not going to bring in money. And from what you're saying is you're counting on that to be, and it's not. So I think we need to be real as to look at what is going to be the actual cost. And we don't have to actually have a trial to know that, but all the experts are saying is it's not. So I just don't want to see us build a plan on something that's not, it's like building this whole thing on tobacco funds or cigarette funds that continue to go down. And again, to say that 2 cents is the panacea, it's not.
So Warbird information is really about the clinical activity, and then it was not about clinical trials.
Well, but every other
And-
study on that says that,
and-
so, I mean,
And I am, as I said, from 2 years ago, the Cancer Center cannot simply, just based on all the budget, grants, and all these activities, it will always require some certain level of support from state and
and we've given that support.
I appreciate, the support, and I am not in that position to say that this is self-sustained system. There is not any kind of NCI designated cancer center is not self-sustainable. It requires multiple support and help,
Right.
and that's.
And we committed to that for the Cancer Center and not for other ambitious, and
correct.
it's great to have.
Right.
Because I was talking with Lieutenant Governor, and she said that when they did this, that they were told that it was going to be self-sustaining.
I think that is totally inappropriate statement.
Well, again,
Yeah.
these are inappropriate statements that are told to us now that is inaccurate, which is why I'm so concerned of your statements that could be in 2, 3 years, 4 years from now, be inaccurate. Because I shouldn't say every, majority of the predictions or estimations that the UH have given in many areas have always fallen short. I mean, look at, well, even your own building, your own early clinical trials building. You guys thought it was going to be $13 million. And then, and we got another 6.5 million, and it still didn't finish the whole thing. I can go on and on. Sinclair, we had to use 15 million of RIM monies. The pharmacy school, we're going to have this robust pharmacy school. The enrollment is down. West Oahu.
I know,
mean, it's
I know.
on and on and on.
I
So
know.
how can we have confidence in what you guys are saying? Because on one hand, you're saying that, on the other hand, you want us to pay the debt service, you want to raise the tax, and this is not going to be solved on top of all the money that we've already continued to give.
I understand that, and here I
And
am
there's no
asking you
fiscal
to,
restraint.
I'm
That's the
asking you
thing.
to trust us.
Well, show me fiscal restraint.
I-
Show
I-
me that you folks are cutting costs. Show me that you're becoming more efficient. Show us that.
Yes.
And that's not what we're seeing. So, that is so important. And so Regents, you folks need to understand that. It's not we're not for Cancer Center, that we don't believe in that, because it's so emotional. I don't want to lead our residents to think that this is going to be there, and then at some point, they can't get the services because we can't continue it.
I have a high degree of confidence in Dr. Ueno. He has had a lot of success before he came here, as he said, over 30 years.
Yes, but
He
I'm
brings-
concerned about his being here and what we've not gotten at this point. Because I met with him when he first got hired and explained to him how the monies are dwindling and we don't have monies, and all I got is asking for more money and more money. That's all I've been gotten after a couple meetings with him. And so that concerns me, because he's not listening to what we're saying and what's happening in the budget. And then he goes and write articles in the paper about certain things that is really not accurate.
And I think that was also an article about fundraising, and this goes to what Vice President Sirmo said earlier, that the key here, once we start these trials, and we hope to start them in the spring, and we build on those, you have patients, you have grateful patients, you can start building a donor base. That's what's happened at the medical school. That's how they are funding so many of our medical school students. We need to do the same thing. We need to build that
Exactly.
kind of,
Because you cannot do it.
you can't do
have
it,
to.
we can't do it
Yes.
together.
And
We need
you
other people
cannot
to
count
come in.
on necessarily continued state
Yeah.
funding. You have to have this
That's-
philanthropic
right.
support. You have to have that.
Yes.
And if you don't have that, then that's troubling. And so you can't get it because you get a $250,000 startup and you got a 10 million program. What's going to happen when you can't raise the money? What's going to happen when it falls short?
That's,
Go ask the legislature. And it's hard, because again, cancer is emotional. Nobody wants to say no to cancer, and that's why we're so concerned about going down a road that at some point, we're going to disappoint people with their lives, not with just plain disappointment, with their health. And that bothers me. Any one of us in this room can be struck down with cancer. But at the same time, I have to be realistic about the budget. I have to be realistic about the pie is only so big. So if the university would like to use their resources, your reserves, and you're going to commit to that for the lifetime, then fine. But you cannot go down that road and then come to us and then say, oh, we need this money because we didn't save anything, we didn't put anything into reserve, and now we can't pay our debt service. You knew the debt service was there. You knew you had all this income. You knew when you took the job that it was dwindling. And you can't rely on 2 cents tax that's going to only bring in $6 to $7 million this next year, and then it's going to go down. Then what you going to do? To me, that's very irresponsible.
Cannot argue with that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to be so blunt, but that's,
No,
we're
can't
talking
argue
about
with it.
people's lives here and people's hopes and dreams. And when they get these kinds of aspirational articles, it doesn't help. On the heels of a budget that you guys coming in and asking for all this funding. So you have to assume that if you don't get the funding, what are you going to do? What are you going to do if you don't get the funding?
We will go into the Manoa budget. We will find the funds, and we will make the Cancer Center whole in terms of the debt service.
Right.
We will not default on the debt.
Right.
So
then
we
you-
will have to do
You would
that.
have to do that, exactly, but it's got to come out of something.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we often say if it's important to the university, if it's important to people of Hawaii, then we have to find the money, and we will if we need to.
But you also have to prioritize.
Yes.
What is it that you're going to do? So right now, the priority has to be the Cancer Center to make them whole before you embark on other programs. As meritorious as it is,
Yep.
that we have to, we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Agreed.
So that's all we're asking. We're asking for some fiscally responsible ways on how we're going to do this, because you folks are supposed to be the experts. And yet the numbers that I get, and when I talk with experts in the field, consistently, I get the same result. So they can't all be wrong. Question? No? Okay. Then I look forward to beginning something in the next 6 months. Is that?
Actually, without even putting a time, as soon as we know, you will know. I mean, as soon as we have
Well, and then I'd like to know what
progress.
your assumptions are.
Yeah.
If you're looking at assumptions, you're looking at, Queens, what are the assumptions?
Yeah.
But then, you cannot be in discussion for 2 years with these people. You've been in discussion with them for 2 years, and we don't have a contract. And so, and I've asked them when they come before us. And again, they're not guaranteeing they're going to send patients to us. They're not guaranteeing us anything. Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we are
Thank you.
adjourned.